Engagement, state compliance requirements, and next steps towards a draft. Good evening, Seth.
There we go. It's green now. Before jumping in, I did want to bring up, Mayor Sierra and I were chatting about this before, but both of these presentations have been brought before you at a previous time, but they were before a full council was seated. So if I'm going too fast through the slides, feel free to stop me or ask a question, but we'll try to highlight the important information and then press forward as needed. I also, before starting, wanted to pause and realize that there's maybe some ambiguity around what affordable housing actually is. So before really jumping into the presentations, wanted to touch on what that means and then what it looks like for Englewood. So affordable housing means spending no more than 30% of your income on housing. And anything over that means less money for things like food, healthcare, education, and everything else in daily life. So in Englewood, currently half of renters and about a quarter of homeowners are already over that 30% threshold. For renters, the median income is about $45,000 in Englewood, putting that 30% threshold at about $1,100 per month. And the median rent in Englewood is about $600 over that threshold. On the home ownership side, the gap is even more significant. The median home in Englewood costs roughly $600,000, requiring a salary close to $145,000 a year, where the median salary in Englewood is closer to $87,000. And I'll wait until the slides come up. Oh, I'll just click.
We're waiting on you, Seth.
Great. No, that's good. Okay. So this one is an update on our affordable housing action plan. We're also calling it the Long Range Affordable Housing Plan. This was brought before you all on March 23rd. I was not in attendance. I was dealing with a family emergency, but Tim Dodd led the presentation. So if there's any questions that you had specifically for me that maybe you didn't get to with Tim, feel free to flag those. Okay, some of the accomplishments to date. In 2022, Englewood completed our housing needs assessment. This was really getting a lay of the land to understand what challenges and needs our community is facing around housing. 2023, many updates were done to Code Next, including looking at it through an affordability lens. Also in 2023, there's the creation and launch of the Affordable Housing Task Force. This was to engage the community. It had a mix of members in our community to help understand what challenges and opportunities existed in Englewood. In 2025, the task force brought their final report and presented it to council, which led to a number of recommendations, one being the creation of the Affordable Housing Program, increased staff capacity to lead the program, and then 2026, where we are today, as I mentioned, the initial plan outline for review was brought on March 23rd, and today we'll be touching on a lot of that and giving a couple updates on where things currently stand. So the Affordable Housing Program work plan, there's 47 action steps that are really focused on building out the program itself, tracking projects, grant opportunities, and tracking performance as we do the work itself. We're also looking to engage the community throughout the process through the Home is Key campaign and reviewing regulations, ordinances, processes from that affordable housing lens. One of the big things we're focused on is creating our long-range affordable housing plan, which we're talking about tonight, and then looking to partner with developers and private industry on affordable housing unit production. So connecting the council-directed long-range plan and the state's housing action plan, also called HAP. The 20-year plan, this was directed by council after the presentation by the Affordable Housing Task Force. This plan will establish Englewood's long-range vision and set 20-year goals for housing affordability in our community. And it's really building off the momentum from our housing needs assessment, seeing where those gaps exist and what progress we can do to make an impact looking long range. We'll be identifying what populations, neighborhoods, and housing types the city should invest in and partner towards, and then tracking progress and being transparent with the community over time. Okay, so the Housing Action Plan, this is something that the state has rolled out in Senate Bill 24-174, and it requires all cities with a population over 5,000 people to complete a housing action plan by January 1st, 2028. This framework is responsive to that housing needs assessment and demonstrates a commitment to addressing some of the housing needs on a state level, but tailoring it for local communities. So the Housing Action Plan is not prescriptive on the specific goals, but they do ask that you look at different categories, which we would already look to include in Englewood's 20-year plan. These are the 11 components, but really it's summarizing the findings, looking at things like development of new units, also preservation strategies, looking at who in your community is most impacted, any modifications that make sense for your local community to adopt. But again, these are more categories than prescriptive, saying do this or don't do this. And then they touch on outreach and engagement. Again, this is at a minimum. In Englewood, I think we can and should go above and beyond the minimum requirements for engaging our community. Staff's recommendation is that we essentially check both boxes, realizing that the council-directed 20-year affordable housing plan and the state-required housing action plan can be one document. This would ensure that Englewood's long-range plan is specific to our community, but also meets the state requirements and keeps us eligible for resources, funding, and other opportunities at the state level. Realizing that the local requirements and suggestions from you all in the community would go above and beyond the minimum set by the state, and we could tailor it to what makes sense for Englewood. So we believe that this approach allows the city to fulfill our obligation to council, meet the state compliance requirements, and position Englewood for some of those funding eligibility, and not duplicate planning efforts. The community engagement piece. So this has already been ongoing. A lot of engagement and outreach was done for the housing needs assessment in 2022. We're also rolling out a community engagement plan and doing continued work through Home is Key. You'll notice the biggest update since we last spoke, we have a survey that is currently live for our long-range housing plan. This is really just the first of hopefully many touch points with the community. We're trying to find creative ways to engage with people that might not show up to city events or take a survey. But this is the first touch point, as well as doing specific focus groups, events, and finding ways to connect with residents in Englewood to make sure all voices are heard. The Housing Action Plan community engagement requirements, they do touch on continuous engagement. The main hardline requirement is just having a public hearing, just one, before the adoption of the plan. Again, this is the minimum that the state sets and not the goal for Englewood. Ideally, we would be doing more than this. So as I touched on a little bit, the community survey is currently live for the month of May. We're also looking at doing targeted focus groups with specific groups throughout the community. We have an event later in the summer at the Malley Center targeted for seniors in Englewood. We have an event actually tomorrow evening right up the street from here that we'll be sharing our work and having it be another touch point for residents in Englewood to engage around affordable housing. We're looking at doing workshops for first-time homeowners, teachers, renters, really engaging with the local workforce too, since there's a lot of overlap between the workforce and housing. And the big thing is we're focusing on both housing preservation and production and not leaning too much one way or the other. So home is the key. This program has been ongoing for years and will continue during and after plan development. It's a continued focus on awareness, sharing stories of people in the community. We're doing a new focus, though, on education and engagement. So connecting members in the community with resources that might already be available and raising awareness on those. And then connecting people with resources for those wishing to stay in their homes and finding funding opportunities for that to happen. The plan structure and components of the plan. These are the big four. This is really about implementing. We want it to be a roadmap for Englewood long term, not a plan that just sits on a shelf, but we want this to be used and a way to really track progress as we move forward. So it should connect to Englewood's priorities. That's why we're getting feedback from you all as well as the community. And we want it to be concise, something that anyone can read through the document and understand and realize the direction that we're heading while also being data-driven. Here's our current timeline. You'll see the housing needs assessment is in green, is completed. The draft plan will be coming in August, giving time for feedback from you all in the community the next couple months for hopefully adoption by the end of this year. And then if council wishes, we would submit that council approved plan to the state to check the box for the housing action plan. And the bottom line, public engagement will be already underway, will continue during and after this plan, but really see that as a key foundation to the work that we're doing. To develop the plan, myself and Tim Dotter, Deputy City Manager, will be engaging with key stakeholders, community members, first and foremost, our housing authority, innovative housing concepts, different nonprofits and developers in the area, and more. That's not an all-inclusive list. We're also looking at possible assistance through a grant with the Department of Local Affairs. And on March 16th of this year, Council provided support for that application for the Housing Planning Grant. This would unlock $80,000 of funding. And if approved, the funding would be utilized for doing that public engagement very well, and then plan development and editing. This high-level outline of the plan. Things like introduction, really wanting this plan to be straightforward and easy to read for anyone in our community. So talk about what the plan is, how to use it, the context for Englewood, moving into the executive summary, talking about what we found, the commitments and goals for Englewood, and then summarizing some of the needs first, saying here's what the housing needs assessment told us the gaps were, touching on the community engagement tools and methods that we took to shape the plan, and then looking at the goals. So these are the long-range housing goals, again, focused on not just production, but preservation, based in the data from the housing needs assessment, based on the Affordable Housing Task Force recommendations, and based on community input and feedback. Then moving into housing actions, now that we understand the problem, setting goals on how we're actually going to tackle the needs. So these are zoning and regulatory assessments, setting a plan for development, looking at strategies to make Englewood more affordable, and then strategies to avoid displacement and communities that might be pushed out of Englewood and trying to avoid that. So the implementation plan, this is tracking progress and being transparent as we start implementing the work. And so looking at these cycles of updating the community, having things like a transparent dashboard that anyone can track progress and see where we're at with our goals. And then talking about how we'll monitor. So setting a framework to track progress, update reports, and then update the plan as needed as Englewood grows and changes. Here's some draft goals that were set by council on 2026 that will inform the work. Include setting 10% of Englewood's stock as affordable housing, with 2% of that made up of ADUs. Looking at the preservation of existing affordable housing, trying to increase supply across the housing continuum, expanding pathways to home ownership, and then integrating affordable housing throughout the entire city. These I'll go through pretty quickly.
Could I just excuse me for just a minute? Isn't that incorrect? July 14th, 2026 hasn't happened yet. So that was probably 2025. Is that correct?
That is probably 2025.
Okay.
Sorry about that for
Thank
confusion. Yeah, thank you. I'll make sure that gets updated in the slide. These are examples of other cities that have adopted a housing action plan through the state. I'll go through these pretty quickly since our deputy city manager shared these with you last time, but just some examples. Colorado Springs has done one. Here will work. And you'll see the main thing to highlight in this is communities of all sizes have been doing this work. So Englewood would not be unique with putting one of these together. Tonight, some feedback from you all. Would appreciate direction as where the work is ongoing. First, understanding if council supports incorporating the housing action plan components into Englewood's long-range housing plan, essentially allowing a single locally developed document to meet both the community goals and the state requirements. And then if there's anything in the proposed structure, do you think that reflects the priorities for Englewood, or would council like for specific goals to be prioritized? Next, for community engagement, are there any populations, neighborhoods, housing types that need greater emphasis? I know last time when Tim spoke with you all, there were some good feedback that we received on that with Spanish speaking and renters and seniors in Englewood. So if there's any communities or engagement approaches that you think staff should prioritize as the engagement plan is finalized. And then lastly, the overall approach, are there any concerns about feasibility, community reception, or political context that we should be aware of? I think that is it for me. I'll go back to this last slide just so the questions are there in front of you. But
sounds great. Mr. Brown, thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions for members of council? Member Praying, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the updated presentation and also for the council response to the impacts of tying the plans together. I was satisfied with the answer provided for that, so I am supportive of making this our housing action plan submitted to the state. I don't really have any major concerns with the structure or goals. I would like, just for the public to be able to hear, if you could just speak a little bit more about how you're going to address accessibility as far as community engagement goes. So some of those targeted populations that we spoke to last time, and if you would consider potentially working with Englewood schools to maybe do a Spanish-speaking event around affordable housing. I think that you could probably get a higher percentage of participation in an event like that if it were hosted through.
yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So as I mentioned, the community engagement that's been done up to this point is the first of hopefully many touch points. So with the accessibility in mind, we're trying to provide a variety of options for people, thinking through things like in-person versus virtual, language accessibility, going to where people already are versus having them have to come to our turf on city council meeting or town hall. While we'll still do those, we really want to be out in the community and connecting with people on the ground that are already connected and have a voice and maybe a farther reach than city staff would. So I like your idea of schools being a resource, other nonprofits that are maybe already planted doing work in our community, finding ways that we can partner with those groups and really amplify, the reach that we have for this work.
And then I guess a follow-up question to that, as part of your key stakeholder engagement, did you intend to do any looping back around to the Affordable Housing Task Force members just to, as the plan is coming along, kind of check back in with that group to see if we're in alignment with some of their thinking? That's really, the work that sparked this and brought your position to us.
Yeah.
And so just wanting to make sure that we get some input from them.
Yeah. And I will say, as a side note, I've connected with some of them already, but we'll continue to use those voices as realizing we're building off of work that has been ongoing for years. It's not new or trying to reinvent the wheel, but we'll be engaging them as whether that makes sense as a roundtable or one-on-one conversations throughout the process too.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
Sounds good. And then I guess lastly for me, I would like, as the work continues, for us to do a bit more analysis around the prescriptive nature of us asking for 2% of affordable housing to be ADUs. I would like to see some look into whether that's feasible, whether it's been done. Does it actually result in affordable housing? I'm not anti that being there, but I just wonder about being prescriptive in any way as far as what types of housing we're going to provide for that.
Yeah, absolutely. If that's something you'd like me to look into, I can do that. Have chatted internally to see if, those metrics aren't necessarily wrong, like you were saying, but might be unintentionally tracking some of the wrong outcomes for success.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe those percentage-based targets relative to overall housing stock might make real progress look like regression. If the market rate development also grows alongside of affordable units, or vice versa, the market could stall and it could look like we're making great progress, but not actually meeting the needs of our community. So I can put something together for you all if that is something we want to revisit.
When we do a follow-up update and do approvals of the plan, maybe just some further information on that particular area. I think ADUs are kind of a hot topic right now and definitely an attractive thing to look at. And we're in many other ways through, our zoning changes, et cetera, opening the doors for that. I just don't know for sure if I feel like it belongs in this plan at the percentage that it belongs in there. And so just maybe an update on that when you come to present the plan for approval. And then, that could be an ongoing analysis throughout time as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Member Prang. Member Summerson.
Hi. Thank you, Seth. Appreciate the work and the information around the housing action plan. Just one quick question and then a comment. On the question, you mentioned we saw the 11 components that would be part of the housing action plan. Just the language bounces back and forth a little bit in terms of questions for council, which are incorporating housing action plan components into our plan. But the reference to the 11 components was that they already exist in the plan. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood if we were adding or regrouping anything in order to hit those 11 targets within the state plan. Just looking to understand that.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. So I guess, if you want, I can click back to that slide too. But the wording tonight, the direction that I was seeking from you all is if those 11 components, if we're okay touching on each of those components, realizing when we bring a draft or the final document to you all at the end of the year, it'd be another discussion at that point on if council wants to adopt that version of the plan, and then deciding after it's adopted by council if we want to submit to the state. So we don't have to decide all of that tonight. This is more saying this is the direction we think we should head and topics that we would like to cover, which would include those 11 at a minimum. But we're not voting on anything per se tonight, so that will be a more direct question in future session.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think I just wanted to make sure that what some of the ideas that you're working on or that have been shared or presented are feeding our ability to categorize within those 11 components versus the other way around. So semantic, but important. And then just a comment about affordability. I know you started the conversation by talking about the 30% for rent and home ownership. There's a lot of conversation in the community about affordable housing and making sure that we understand what that means. Some people are conflating affordable housing and attainable housing. Some people are referencing, state or federal guidelines for what the math is for affordable housing. And so just any clarity you can bring to the plan, especially in the executive summary, to define really what the scope is here. I think that also dictates the housing type, et cetera, that's in there. So. And then in the plan outline, just elevating goals. I think we always tend to want to give all of the information and the data as to why first, but I think the community would benefit from seeing what our housing goals are up sooner in the plan, and then letting the other information be the background to how we got to those goals.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Seth, I have one question. So regarding the housing plan, do we publicize that in any way? Well, in what way do we publicize our housing plan? And then also, does that information ever get shared with anyone that's looking to develop within the city itself? Is it made available with community development or communications?
So the plan, once it is adopted, will be public, accessible to anybody, and going back to the plan needing to be concise and straightforward, that intent is for anyone, whether that's somebody in the community, somebody outside of Englewood looking to do an affordable project, understanding our approach. Currently, the housing needs assessment is also a public document that's on our city website. Anyone can look at that for understanding what challenges and needs our community is facing. And so it'd be something similar once we put together our long-range affordable housing plan.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. And then I had a similar question to what Member Prang asked in terms of whether or not we should be prescriptive within our housing plan or not. Looking at some of the examples that were provided within the slide deck, it doesn't look like we should be. So would we be prescriptive more like in our strategic plan, or if there were certain metrics that we wanted to hit as a city, like where do we capture that information? Is more the strategic plan?
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. So it's really up to how council would like to do this. I think we naturally would probably treat this originally as a plug-in plan to the strategic plan, so we would most likely have most of the metrics here. However, it's up to you to decide if there's key metrics that you want to elevate from the housing action plan into the strategic plan. The other thing to point out is the 2% the Member Prang mentioned and the 8% affordable. Obviously, as you all remember, those came out of your retreat last year. So if that's kind of the guidepost that we're using right now, but we're happy to get your feedback about additional ideas, and we understand Seth has brought forward internally some other ideas and suggestions on how to measure that wouldn't be as prescriptive.
Okay. All right. Member Russell, go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. I just have a couple of questions. Do you know what the current vacancy rate is in Englewood?
I am not aware of that number off the top of my head, but I could pull that up for you.
I would appreciate that because I think the vacancy rate in Englewood could impact the housing affordability also. And I know that rent is coming down and people have gotten some substantial discounts on rent because of what's going on right now. Also, how will we monitor changes in the housing market? Because in my lifetime, it goes up, it goes down. And it could end up at some point that we have far more than 8% affordable housing. Englewood could become a very affordable city. So how do we intend to monitor the changes in the housing market and how does it apply to the plan that we're developing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Realizing while there are many levers and things that a city can do, the housing market and nationally, there's things out of Englewood's control, but there is a lot that we can do at the local level to improve affordability in our community. As far as tracking what the housing market is doing and success or progress with affordability, we would look to have that transparent dashboard or something that shows progress, figuring out what cycles we track that at, whether it's an annual number metric that we're looking at, setting 5, 10, 20-year goals as well, but having that number be updated and ongoing. So if we see changes or things occurring mid-plan, there's flexibility that we can adjust the approach or specific metrics as needed, wanting this plan to be as usable and a living document and a roadmap versus something stagnant that we're locked into for 20 years. This will be something we can come back to and revisit if those goals or priorities shift.
I appreciate that. And I mean, even we are already 4 years out from when the housing assessment need was completed and changes are already starting to occur. So just wanted to be mindful of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Member Russell, do you mind if I ask a question? So when you were asking for vacancy, is it on apartments? Is that what the number, because can we get it for the
Yes.
rest of the city?
Yeah, it was mostly on apartment
Just apartments
houses.
within the city? Okay.
Right. Because housing itself, like in single-family homes,
Right.
people choose to hang on to their properties
Exactly.
whether there's anybody living there or not.
Right.
Okay.
I was wondering whether or not that was a number that we can actually gather as well. So,
All right.
But apartments make sense.
All right. Thank you.
Was there any further feedback you were looking for from us regarding the open questions? I know that we answered some of that towards a few months back, but it doesn't sound like anyone's got anything new to add from here. So,
No, this
okay,
covered all my bases. Thanks for all your questions and feedback.
All right. Well, Mr. Brown, I see no further questions from council, so thank you very much for this first agenda item. We will move on to the second agenda item, which is the right of first refusal. Seth, you're going to be providing us a review of the new state law regarding right of first refusal. And this was something that was brought to us a couple months back as well. So,
yes.
Yeah, looking forward to speaking on the topic again.
Great. Okay, so tonight we'll be speaking with you all about House Bill 2024-1175. This presentation was also brought back in March, and at the time we tabled it due to the vacant seat. Some updates and maybe things to call out on where we left things off. Member Ward last time, I believe, brought up one of the options would be waiving this right for the city. So our city attorney drafted a memo on what that could look like that should be included in the appendices. Tonight we'll be running through what this means and what it would look like for our community and direction from you all. So there's two parts of this. There's the right of first refusal, which allows the local government or an eligible assignee to make a matching offer. And this is to purchase an existing affordable property that has 5 or more units only if the owner chooses to sell. The next is the right of first offer, which allows a local government or eligible assignee to express interest and make an initial offer to purchase an existing multifamily residential or mixed-use rental property within 15 to 100 units prior to the property being listed for sale. The partnerships and assignment piece, the local government can partner with a nonprofit, private, quasi-governmental, or governmental entities to finance, lease, or manage these qualifying properties, and can also assign right of first refusal rights to a local, regional, or state housing authority, either on a property-specific or programmatic basis. Okay, so the right of first refusal, again, this is must be an existing affordable housing property with at least 5 units or more. The purchase cost would need to be substantially identical to another offer that the seller receives. And this right is not indefinite, but would be terminated December 31st of 2029. Skip. Okay, so here's a flow chart that just talks about what triggers what and how things would look for Englewood. So the blue, the owner would decide to sell their property and would receive an offer that they are willing to accept. Once the owner receives that offer they are willing to accept, they would notify the city, which then gives the city 30 days or less to make an identical matching offer. If the owner says yes and accepts the city's identical matching offer, they have 14 days to do that. If things move forward and they accept it from there, the contract would be executed, which usually takes less than 30 days, and then closing, which is less than 60 days after the contract. If the city makes a matching offer, the owner or seller also has the option to decline the city's matching offer, which then the sale would proceed normally with the original buyer. For the right of first offer, this applies to any property with not more than 100 units and not less than 15 units, but is market rate. Sellers must first notify the city or an appointee of the intent to sell prior to putting the property on the market. And again, this right would be terminated December 31st, 2029. The flow chart for the right of first offer. If the owner decides to sell and receives an offer they are willing to accept, they would notify the city. This gives the city early notice to review, but the city can either request interest or not. This is a voluntary conversation. The owner may continue to market the property and may accept or decline, but there's no obligation to sell. If the city does not request interest, the owner can again continue to market this property to the public. Throughout this, there's no required waiting periods, and the owner may proceed normally throughout the entire process. In conclusion, this law provides 2 voluntary market-based tools that give local governments like Englewood an opportunity to preserve existing affordable housing and also prevent the loss of affordability when properties change hands, all while maintaining owner choice and typical market timelines. Tonight, City Council would appreciate direction on the multiple options for how to utilize this law, whether to maintain these rights for the city, transfer these rights to a nonprofit or quasi-governmental agency or housing authority like Innovative Housing Concepts, or partner with the housing authority and approach these opportunities on a case-by-case basis. And lastly, I would add, as mentioned at the beginning, the 4th option would be to waive these rights, which you'll see in the appendices as a final option too. Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Brown, thank you very much again for the presentation. Any questions from members of council? So I guess I'll ask a question just because I'm unclear on this. So let's say that let's say there is a properties, let's say there's 10 properties within the city of Englewood that's owned by a single owner. He decides to sell those 10 properties. He goes out and gets a bid. It's market rate. Based on the flow chart, we then, the city has the opportunity to pay at that market rate or buy at that market rate. If we're successful, doesn't the market dictate whether or not that those are still naturally affordable housing units? So I'm just saying that the purchase price may dictate whether or not that rent may stay affordable. Do I have that correct?
It would depend on how the deal was structured or what the intent was for whether it was the city or housing authority took over. But yeah, what you're referring to is the right of first offer, which is where a market rate property changes hands. That's any building that's between that 15 and 100 units. And the only requirement in there is the notification to the city, which does the early notice period. So again, this is the voluntary conversation where the owner could continue to market the property and has the option to either accept or decline any offer that they receive, where there's no obligation for them to sell it.
Okay. So I guess my question was more on the first right of refusal. I'm just wondering if that same instance doesn't occur or wouldn't occur within that flow, within that process flow.
Yes, so the right of first refusal, different thresholds, it's 5 units or more, but those apply for units that are already deemed affordable units.
By legal description of affordable?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct.
Okay,
and so that's on the preservation piece, the units that we have in Englewood that are already affordable, holding on to those before they change hands and maybe become a market rate luxury unit.
So that does answer my question then. So they do stay affordable because legally they are considered affordable housing units.
Correct. Yes.
Based on vouchers or whatever it happens to be. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
That answers that. Thank you very much for that, Seth. Any other questions for members of council? I don't see any further questions. I think the last time we spoke on this, my preferred option was option 2, which was innovative housing concepts to transfer the rights there. I think the reasoning behind that is that the funding would come from them if this situation were to present itself. It wouldn't be really the city. We don't really have a fund specifically for purchasing those units. But we do have the innovative housing concepts, and they do have the ability to purchase units. Obviously, if it fits within their budget. So for me, it just makes more sense for us to transfer those rights, but still be involved as a city in that process, but to transfer the rights. So that would be my preferred option regarding the 4 that you mentioned. Anything else from members of council? Anyone want to weigh in or any further questions on this? Anyone disagree with where I went with this? I know that there's probably disagreement, but Member Ward?
I'll just rest on what I said last time. I don't believe that this type of monkeying with the market is needed, necessary, required, or advisable in Englewood, so I do not support this.
Thank you, Member Ward. Go ahead, Member Russell.
Thank you, and I agree with that, and I think it just creates an added problem to the person that wants to sell the property. So, thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I agree with him.
All right, thank you so much. The other 3 members of council, go ahead, Member Summerson.
I guess I have a question on the time frame. I think it's on the first right of refusal. I forget which one now. Yes, this one. Um, this would assume that at this particular point in time, a lot of this is possibly about future opportunities, right? Where the city may have dollars within housing authority, et cetera, to like be able to actually purchase these, right? Or again, I know you're recommending the partnering with a nonprofit. I guess for me, the 30 days here, I just would want to make sure that if we clearly know that a property is not within the direction that we want to head, that either party wants to head in, that we would sort of not just hold on to our decision for 30 days just because we have it. So I guess I would want to make sure that if we were implementing this, that our Englewood standard would be a quicker return on notification, especially in this particular one than taking our full 30 days. So I know it says less, but that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And that's something we could look at too, is what internal processes should exist depending on who we assign these rights to or if we maintain them. But what should that feedback loop be so we're not dragging out these timelines?
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. I'm in agreement with that, Member Summerson. Just because we have 30 days doesn't mean we should be taking it if there's no intent or not the budget to do so. Member Bethel and then Member Prank.
I'm going to agree with the mayor on this, that I'd prefer option 2 to transfer these rights to innovative housing concepts. I don't think that this bill is onerous to people looking to sell their properties. I think that in most multifamily units, they're managed by professional entities or by professional landlords, and informing the city of their intent to sell is not a difficult ask. I think that Member Summerson brings up a good point that we should strive to be as efficient as possible in our notification of those entities looking for sale, especially if we're not interested or don't have the means to purchase a property. And it's not something that the city of Englewood, in its formal entity, wants to be a landlord, right? Us as council should not be landlords. That's just not our role. But innovative housing concepts fits that bill a little bit more accurately. So I'm in favor of option 2.
Thank you very much, Member Bethel and Member Prank.
I'll keep it brief and say that everything that Member Bethel just said, I agree with, including the option number 2, that it should go to innovative housing concepts.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Brown, any further direction needed?
No, I think got the answer I needed. Thank you.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the 2 presentations tonight, Mr. Brown. With that, everyone, we are going to take a 10-minute break. Actually, if we could just come back at the top of the hour, we'll continue with the 3rd agenda item. Thank you so much. Members of council, if you could please be seated. All right. Thank you very much, members of council. And for the public, we are now back. We are moving on to agenda item 4. We have our chief of police, Dave Jackson, as well as our deputy chief, Vance Fender. We also have our technology director, Joe Isenbart. Is he online?
I was going to ask the same thing.
All right. Well, hopefully he's online, but if not, you are here to discuss the contracts for the Axon block safety and Dronesense. Obviously, we've had quite a few discussions on this topic over the past 6 or so months, since about November, I believe. But yeah, looking forward to this conversation tonight, Chief.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having us back. And I know we do have some new members, so kind of review very quickly some of the stuff that we've talked about in the past. I also have a couple of members of staff that can help answer some of the more specific questions as they come up. The purpose of this presentation is to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Member Summerson.
Yeah, just thank you. I looked at the presentation. I'm excited to hear you go through it. I guess I wanted to ask a question on being able to have this conversation be focused around strengthening our protection and use of surveillance. And so I'm still curious as to whether or not the spending a lot of time talking about flock, if there's a desire to terminate the flock contract or to not let that expire, if we should sort of indicate that up front so that we can have a better, more productive conversation about Axon, Dronesense, Visual, all the other tools that our police use and need to do their job. So.
Yeah, so I probably should give a little bit of clarity on what the expectations are for tonight. So tonight we are going to be discussing these 3 contracts regarding Flock, Axon, and Dronesense. Chief, you're going to be providing us an overview again, kind of just what we've gone over the past 6 or 7 months, discussing how they're being used, what they're tracking, that type of information. We obviously will then ask any follow-up questions regarding the 3 contracts. From there, then there should be a decision made on council whether or not we are okay moving forward with the 3 contracts. If there is a sense that we should move away from one or multiple of these, that would be the basis for tonight. There will be a second conversation later on this summer regarding how we're capturing this data, how we're capturing this information, whether or not we are following the proper audit processes or anything that we need to do in order to strengthen how we're capturing this information and whether or not we're basically making sure that it meets, state regulations or even what the contract stipulates, those type of things, because obviously that is what I actually consider the more important aspect of what we're discussing overall in regards to surveillance. So I'm hoping that made sense, Member Summerson. Is there anything that I may have missed or any clarification?
No, I appreciate the clarification. I just wanted to make sure we were going into the presentation and out of it with some alignment on expectations for this evening.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Member Summerson. Thought I saw another light or two, or did that answer what the expectation is for tonight? Okay. All right. Chief, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for the clarification. And as technology evolves in law enforcement and public safety, we want to make sure that we remain committed to protecting the rights guaranteed under the Constitution and the Colorado Constitution. Our approach balances innovation with civil liberties by ensuring technologies are deployed to enhance public safety, improve response capabilities, and support accountability. We do want to respect privacy, due process, and protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. Modern tools such as automated license plate readers, real-time camera systems, data analytics help us identify crime patterns, locate stolen vehicles, detect wanted suspects, and deter criminal activity before it escalates. Visibility and rapid identification alone can have a deterrent effect. As police departments across Colorado adapt new technologies, criminals also adapt and commit crimes in jurisdictions that do not utilize it. That is referred to as a technological black hole. Aerial support by way of drones as first responders, real-time crime systems, ALPRs, automated license plate readers, reduce uncertainty during law enforcement incidents. More accurate information lead to safer tactics, reducing risk to officers and community members. We'll show some videos that kind of show exactly how that plays out. Technologies like real-time information centers, drones as first responder programs, and cameras provide officers with immediate situational awareness. Drones as first responders response time is 90 seconds to 3 minutes. Right now, we are very proud of our response times. We're above the national average. I think it's one of our metrics. It's also on our annual report. We're a little under 7 minutes, which is above the national average of a little over 7 minutes. And we could get that down to 90 seconds to 3 minutes by implementing some more technology. We want to improve our efficiencies and create more proactive law enforcement. Exactly what I was thinking, Mayor. Thank you. That's why I'm on this side of the. This is why I'm not going to get into the technology part of it. We'll have Joe or somebody talk about that. With limited staffing and growing service demands, technology allows agencies to deploy personnel strategically. Data-driven policing helps focus resources on areas and times where crime is most likely to occur. Technology is a force multiplier. These tools can assist officers in being available to proactively patrol in areas requiring high levels of police presence. This is Vance Fender's fault.
I think we call that karma, Chief.
Thank you. Let's see.
I think you skipped a slide, I believe.
Integrated video, ALPR, and aerial imagery provide objective documentation that supports witness statements, establishes timelines, and strengthens probable cause, leading to more thorough investigations and improved prosecutorial outcomes. Technologies such as DFR, ALPR, and real-time information centers accelerate investigations by quickly locating suspects and vehicles. We'll say we'll have a slide here in a few minutes that kind of talks about the prosecution. I promise I'm not touching anything. Let's see. Are we on the right slide? I guess that's my question.
That is the correct slide, yep.
Okay, do we integrated video systems, drone footage, and ALPRs create time-stamped, auditable records that preserve facts as they occurred, reducing reliance solely on recollection and strengthening the integrity of investigations. Technology systems generate measurable data, retrievable records that can be shared through public reporting, open records processes, and court proceedings, demonstrating lawful, appropriate, and accountable use of public safety tools. These also allow supervisors to monitor incidents in real time and conduct thorough after-action reviews, ensuring compliance and consistent decision-making. When governed by clear policies, training, and oversight, technology helps law enforcement agencies meet public safety goals while respecting privacy, due process, and protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. All ALPR vendors allow departments to control who they share the information with. There are differences in how that information is shared and how it may be accessed. In short, leveraging technology is not to replace officers, but to support smarter, safer, and more accountable policing in an increasingly complex public safety environment. In January of 2026, I will say there are a lot of court rulings that discuss privacy issues and Fourth Amendment issues. Most of that is determined to be whether it is reasonable or unreasonable into your privacy or into a citizen's privacy. In 2026, the federal court ruled, I believe this was in Norfolk, that the use of automated license plate readers does not violate Fourth Amendment privacy rights. The judge stated another state and federal court rulings have uniformly concluded that neither the taking of photos of license plates of a vehicle on a public roadway nor maintaining and querying a database of ALPR photos constitutes a warrantless search. The two main vendors of ALPRs are Flock Safety and Axon Enterprises. Englewood Police currently utilizes Flock Safety for stationary license plate reading cameras. There are 10 stationary cameras. They cost $3,000 each. 2 flex cameras at $3,500. 1 camera trailer at $25,000, and an advanced search at $2,500. I was able to see the mayor at a public event a couple of weeks ago, and I was able to apologize to him. The last time we spoke about this, I misspoke. There was a question about the $64,500 for Flock Safety. I said that was just for the trailer. I misspoke. I was incorrect on that. It's $25,000 for the camera. It's $65,500 for all of Flock Safety. I just wanted to make sure I set the record straight there, and I apologize. The current contract with Flock is on a 12-month auto renew. The city of Englewood utilizes a Flock Safety trailer camera. This does not have a license plate reader. The footage is stored and retained by Flock Safety and their FBI and CJIS compliant servers. It is deleted on a rolling 30-day cycle. It's deployed at data-driven hotspot locations. In fact, it may be outside right now. It was out there last week, I think. Outside of Civic. And that is on a current contract with a 12-month auto renew. As you recall, just recently, I believe in March, we were here discussing the in-car video cameras. In April of 26, Axon Fleet 3 are the in-car cameras that are in all marked patrol cars. They operate when the car's emergency equipment triggers. To turn on, all video is uploaded to evidence.com. All cameras operate as ALPR cameras, and it provides real-time alerts to officers on a hot list from CCIC or NCIC. Body-worn cameras are a statutory obligation. Axon was awarded the contract in through March of 2031. I think we just started that in March of 2026, 5-year contract. An addendum to the contract will be coming to council in the near future for the inclusion of real-time interpretation module on the cameras with a total cost of nearly $1.9 million over 5 years. Englewood Police has deployed drones for approximately 4 years. We own and operate indoor and outdoor drones. All drone operators are FAA certified. One of our officers, Jimmy Torres, is here today. May come up here and speak in a little bit about some of the specifics on this. They're taken out by patrol officers, by sworn officers, and deployed when needed. They are not available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And there's a robust policy regarding their usage. EPD utilizes a program called Dronesense for auditing and tracking purposes of these drones, and I'll show you a screenshot of that here in a few minutes of what that looks like. They're deployed reactively from patrol officers in their cars. Dronesense records all flight times, pilot information, locations, images of flight patterns, and live streaming capabilities. This $14,200. Dronesense contract expires in January of 2027. I will say this is how a lot of drones have operated in the past few years as this technology is adopted in law enforcement. It has strengths and weaknesses. One of the weaknesses is that we have to deploy an officer in order to utilize the drone. So that takes one officer away from being able to address the situation. So. Englewood is working towards a drones as first responders model. There are different vendors that have auditing and tracking software included. It's more robust than Dronesense. Video from the drone flights are not captured unless they are of evidentiary value. They are stored per the state of Colorado retention schedule in digital evidence. Those are a little bit different. They deploy from a fixed location. They do not require an officer to operate them. Okay, this is drone footage. This is what it looks like. Can I pause this? Oh, no, I cannot pause it. I think I can actually. I have to go forward and back. Thinking out loud. Okay, so this is a situation at a local hotel. Inside this hotel are 2 escapees from the Department of Corrections. These are particularly tense and dangerous, as these people have just escaped from the Department of Corrections and they escaped in order to not go back. These often end with a lot of physical force being used. One thing, I do get questions from time to time about de-escalation. How do we de-escalate a situation? The best way to de-escalate a situation is to create distance and have cover. That gives us more time to dialogue. That's what you are actually witnessing in here. I think I've started it again. You can see that way away on the right side there is one officer. Otherwise, in the old days, we had to be right up on top of that. I'm going to hit a button and see if this does anything. There we go. So you can kind of see how this unfolds. This is a drone that we have on the exterior of the building. There is also a drone that you'll see come out on the interior of the building. Because of all of this, we're able to dialogue with these people from distance. She comes out and she's going to be taken into custody with no incident. There is still another escapee inside. There's a drone inside. They're able to look at him, communicate with him, and he is laying on the ground surrendering inside, thus de-escalating this into a very safe arrest.
You'll see that the window's broken. That's how they got the indoor drone in, and you'll see that come out the door here in just a second.
There's the drone that comes out, flying back towards the rescue vehicle. So that's one way. Again, the distance in a confrontation or a distance in an arrest gives us time to make better decisions and dialogue, thus the de-escalation. Kind of a similar situation. This is a scenario where the officers had pulled a car over, and as they walked up to it, the car takes off. It's pretty unknown of what's going on, but they find the car a few blocks away with nobody in it. So they're relatively certain. Obviously, it's dark outside. This is night vision. It's obviously dark outside. As officers are searching the area, it's very simple to just walk upon a suspect and not have that standoff time. In this instant, an officer was able to deploy a drone, get it overhead, and you can see the heat signature almost directly in the middle of the screen. And what they're able to do is vector in or guide in officers in order to take this person into custody. And that's what you're going to see here. You can see that heat signature. See the officers, I think, are at the top of the screen, are going to be coming in the top of the screen. They're able to use distance, cover, and concealment and movements in order to safely get on target. I think also in this instance, we utilized a canine officer from another agency, and you'll see a canine deploy here. The canine is down there at the bottom. And that's it. Yeah, I'm going to introduce Officer Jimmy Torres, who's one of our FAA certified pilots. And this is what Dronesense looks like, and he can kind of describe all of the data that is here. Thank you for coming up, Jimmy. Hit the green button. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. So what we're looking at here is, like the chief said, this is some of the auditing information that we get from Dronesense. So at the top, you'll see an aerial map. The little blue lines signify the flight path that the drone took on that mission. It has the officer's name. Should have it somewhere on there. A little hard to read from this far away. But it has time, the date, time, locations of the flights, the amount of time that the drone was up in the air. There is no, Dronesense does not keep any of the actual video footage. If you wanted to see a flight path that the drone took, it's all like 3D imagery with the Google aerial views. So a flight at 1 a.m. isn't going to look like a flight at 1 a.m. It's going to look like a flight at noon because it's going to be super bright. Because again, it's just aerial views like you would get from a Google map. On there, it has the checklist that if depending on how much time you have to deploy, the Dronesense does provide a checklist to make sure that the drone is operational. That's second nature for us. These drones are equipped to not fly or not take off if there's any malfunction. If one of the propellers arms isn't fully extended and locked in, it will not take off. This is just another checklist for officers to use. It is used pretty frequently. Again, case dependent. If it needs to get up in the air right away, we do forego that checklist.
Can you describe what the blue squiggly line is up on the top left corner?
Yeah, that's the flight path that the drone took on that flight. It looks like it's just canvassing through the streets, and I mean if you enhance that image, it'll show you like the names of the streets. It's just kind of where you can see the drone. There's a real dark dense spot of blue. I think that's where they located the suspect. So you'll see a lot more flight path in that general direction there.
And there is in that flight path, there's a real-time player that actually we couldn't embed into this to play that actual flight path. So it will show exactly where the drone was, exactly what time, the altitude, and even the angle of the camera, and where the direction that the camera on the drone is pointed. So in real time, there's a player that will actually show that exact information.
Thank you, Jimmy. Anybody have any questions for Officer Torres?
I don't think so at this time. Thank you very much, Officer Torres.
Thank you. ALPR data is used in several ways for legitimate law enforcement purposes, such as real-time CCIC, NCIC hits. Information is dispatch, officers' cars, computers, phone app. Officers can respond to the last known area in which a car was seen in order to investigate. Investigative detectives and officers and detectives can search the data for investigative leads involving vehicles. This is what they see. So this is a stolen vehicle, and it's a picture of the license plate. It's still incumbent on the officer to locate the vehicle, and it's still incumbent on the officer to run the license plate and validate the information that they're getting. We recently had a case where there was a smash and grab burglary. The vehicle was seen by witnesses leaving the area. Put this in here because kind of the identifying vehicle features subject comes up from time to time. No license plate was seen. We did have witnesses, but no license plate was seen. Officers used the vehicle make, model, and color, and a unique identifier, which you're going to see in a video here in just a second, to locate the vehicle. The vehicle occupants were identified from the video from the business. All the suspects were arrested, and the property was returned. So you're going to see, they're going to get up behind this car that's making a left turn here, and you're going to see very, very quickly some discoloration on a unique paint discoloration there. You can kind of see it. It happens rather quickly. That is what the cameras were able to pick up, and that's what allowed us to identify the vehicle so quickly and make the appropriate arrest. Again, there's no audio on these. I'll let this play through to the end so that I don't mess this up. Or I won't. We also have stationary ALPRs. An officer in their car on patrol can receive a real-time alert from a stationary ALPR in reference to a stolen auto that just passed. The alert included a picture of the rear of the stolen vehicle to include the license plate number and description of the vehicle. Officers responded to the area and located the vehicle.
And what this officer does is what we train to do with a stationary vehicle that we need to not let go mobile. And he does what's called a single pin from the front of the vehicle because the vehicle was backed in against the fence and had nowhere to go. So the officer effectively did a vehicle pinning on the car. And we do actually make contact with the car.
Stolen cars do have a propensity to not stop or to drive away, and this is one technique that we use to prevent putting citizens at risk. All of our video footage is used for legitimate law enforcement use, suspect identification, collecting and documenting evidence, advancing case resolution and prosecution, real-time situational awareness, resource allocation and efficiencies, and supporting accountability and transparency. What it is not used for is the purpose of civil immigration enforcement, targeting any person solely based on their actual or perceived race, creed, color, national origin, citizenship, immigration status, sex, sexual orientation, gender, identity, gender expression, marital status, religion, age, disability, veteran or military status, or ancestry. We do not track the movements of vehicles traveling to or from healthcare facilities, including but not limited to clinics, hospitals, mental or behavioral health providers, and/or reproductive health care centers, unless there is clearly articulated nexus to activity that it would be criminal in the state of Colorado. Is not used for monitoring activities protected by the First Amendment of the United States. Simply that we're tracking anything that would be criminal in the state of Colorado. Personal use, harassment, or any other type which is inconsistent with ALPR policy. At one point, I won't go through all of these, but at one point we were asked about retention records. This is how long Colorado state law requires us to keep video and evidence per case. In 2026, the Colorado District Attorney's Council made a statement on this. We talked about black holes at the beginning of this presentation. Modern crime is mobile, digital, and fast-moving. Law enforcement must have access to modern tools in order to quickly corroborate information, verify alibis, locate witnesses, and eliminate suspects. Preventing or limiting only law enforcement from using publicly available data from surveillance cameras, automatic license plate readers, or public databases doesn't eliminate the data itself. It just creates dangerous information black holes, delays justice for victims, and decreases a police officer's ability to obtain the truth. that, I will open
Yep.
for questions.
Chief, thank you very much for the overview. Thank you very much, Officer Torres, for your portion of the presentation as well. So any questions to start from members of council? I have one. Well, actually, I think I have a couple, but so one contract that was left out was Motorola, and I think part of that was because it's now, we're no longer using Motorola, we're using Axon now. Is that correct? Because I know when we first started this discussion, Motorola was a contract that we were using at one point.
Yeah, our original body cameras and in-car cameras were Motorola WatchGuard.
Okay. Thank you. Was it Member Pring or Member Ward? Go ahead, Member Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Early in the presentation, there was a claim made that seems like common sense, but I'd be interested in knowing if we actually have any statistical evidence to support it. And that is the question of crime displacement. Do we have any evidence that supports the idea that municipalities in the Front Range region that don't use flock, if there are any, actually have higher crime rates?
Not aware of any that.
I don't think there's any statistical data on that. We'd have to compare statistical data like we've done in the past. It's pretty time consuming, but everything that we talk to each other, right? And so I think when we do talk to other law enforcement agencies that either have Axon cameras or flock safety ALPR cameras, there are some that don't have cameras at all, and those are the agencies that when we talk to them, they tell us, their thoughts on, what is going on in their jurisdiction. And when they do talk to us, they talk to us about having more stolen cars, not being able to recover stolen cars, things of that nature. So I think it would be very difficult to go apples to apples, if that makes sense.
And maybe just to turn your question just a little bit and not to put words in your mouth, but I think that most of the agencies that have introduced license plate readers, I think everybody at this table knows that Colorado was the #1 state in the country for the most stolen cars. I think that what municipalities have done had identified that there was a problem with cars being stolen and what can we do about it. Automated license plate readers was one way to address that. And I can tell you with our data, I don't have it sitting in front of me, but I think in the last 2 years, our stolen vehicles have gone down 50% and 75% respectively over the last 2 years. So whether that's comparing with another agency, I am confident that the ALPRs have had a positive influence on our crime issues in Englewood.
Great, thank you.
Member Pring.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation this evening and further information on some of our systems that we use. I do have a small handful of questions.
Okay.
I will try to keep them limited. First up, in the presentation on the portion on Axon, there was a statement about there's a host of other supporting equipment and software with Axon. Can you tell us what those are? I think it would be helpful for the public, and I'm just curious.
It's a great question, and Sergeant Ed Disner just led that initiative to look into Axon.
Okay.
And I think that he can explain kind of what all technologies are out there that Axon provides.
I'm just mostly interested in what pieces of it we use, not kind of their whole package of offerings, but what specific pieces we actually engage with.
Okay, I'm Sergeant Ed Disner. As far as the Axon cameras, we use the ALPR systems in the cars. We use the body camera feature that will record videos when they depress the video button. It also has a translate feature that we're using a test for right now until we get a contract for that portion that does the translation to 30 different languages.
Sergeant, do you mind pulling the mic closer to you?
Oh, sorry about that.
And also, I think what you're talking about, the other equipment, so it has all the redaction software that our AV techs use. We have 2 audiovisual techs that redact software or that redact video. Their video redaction is, we've had this discussion with prior councils on the WatchGuard system redaction, which we had to actually buy a different system because the WatchGuard system was so bad. It was taking us so long to redact. So whenever we get requests for video, they redact the videos with that software. They also share it with the district attorney's office. Our AV techs are responsible for getting all those over for traffic tickets, arrests, things of that nature. There's just a ton of, that's what I'm looking for, different features and different software that Axon uses to accomplish those goals. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think some of what you're speaking to is functionality and how we use the features. I just think that when you make a statement about there's a host of other supporting modules or software or whatever used within a system, and we're having conversations about, detailed conversations of what tools we're using and how and why, it's probably best to list that out as comprehensively as possible, just so that the public also doesn't have a question mark on that. We don't need to belabor that point.
And also part of that software is evidence.com,
right.
Which is, that's probably the biggest part of this entire contract, is because evidence.com is where we store all of our digital evidence and where everything, that's the depository. So I think that's probably the bigger part of that.
Okay. Also, and I think this is related to Axon, I believe it's when you were talking about accessing data in evidence.com, and it says that data is accessed for criminal justice purposes. Can you give us a definition of what that means? And then also talk to us about how do the downloaded links work? So if another agency is being invited in because they've made a request to us, and then we send them the invitation to access whatever that piece of data is. When they're asking about an incident, is it the entire footage from an encounter, or is it specific pieces of it? I'm just curious about, criminal justice purposes. So does that require a court case involvement in any way, or it's just because we call it criminal justice purpose because it's another law enforcement agency requesting?
So real quick, I can answer the criminal justice purposes. That just means that we are using the data for investigation of something, whether it's a hit and run or a homicide. So if we are going to access that information, whether it's a stationary ALPR or it's a video of a body-worn camera, that we can access that internally and search that information internally if we're investigating something.
Okay.
So that's the criminal justice purposes, and it also goes back to what we can't do. So that's that part of it. And I think Sergeant Disner would be able to answer the question about how the links work.
Okay, thank
you. So for the links, we have to partner with an agency such as the Arapahoe County DA's office, or Littleton Police Department, or whoever we're going to share that information with. So we have to basically request to be able to share that information, and then they have to approve that request, and then our AV techs go through and determine what information they need or they require. I guess one good example of that is working with our city attorney or our city prosecutor. He will let us know which cases are going to go to trial here at court. Mm-hmm. And once we receive that, we will send them the body cam footage on that. And it's through that link, and it allows them to view the videos. With that allowance to view the videos, we still keep an audit trail of who's viewed that video and everything from that other agency. It is a little different than a public request, where on a public request for the video, like a CORA request or a CCJRA request, we provide that video and then we don't have access to see who's viewed it or where it's gone from there because it's given to the public. If that makes any sense.
And then just to answer, I think another part of your question is what would they be looking for? And it may be as simple as just wanting to know if a vehicle had driven through a certain area. That might be evidence this vehicle was around. Or they may request a body cam footage. It's just kind of what they need in a given circumstance.
So it's kind of a case-by-case basis, how much data they're accessing depending on what the case is about.
Absolutely.
And we would talk to them about that, like what are you looking for? And we would work through that through an investigative procedure.
And we also take into account state law as far as what has to be redacted, what can be redacted, stuff like that. For example, in a hospital setting, the majority of like patients walking through that have to be redacted from that.
Right.
So you're looking at a very, very small portion of the video if that's released to the public. Whereas if you're out in public, a lot of that information is not going to be redacted.
Right. I think that's really helpful information in some of the conversations that we've had about evidence.com being this monstrosity of a system, and then, you know, getting the further clarification that we have our own carved out space within that. And then also now knowing that when a requester, you know, asks to be invited in to view our data, that it's not, they don't get access to our full protected space. They're getting that specific incident information.
They're getting basically a portal for us to send that to, or a box to send it to, basically. And in that box that they receive for the DA's office and for other agencies, they can view that, and we can track who's viewed it and how many times they viewed it with that basically handshake.
Okay. That's really helpful information. Let me see if I do have a few other questions. Coming back to flock databases, so not Axon this time, but I just wanted some clarification. In the presentation, it states that our police department only shares data with other Colorado agencies within Flock's databases. However, when the audit was provided to us, there was clearly access points from a handful of other states. So can you explain the discrepancy between the statement made in this?
Yeah, it's really not. So it's a great question, though, because Flock differs with Axon in the fact that Flock allows what's called a nationwide lookup. Axon does not have that as part of their searchable parameters, for example. So what the nationwide lookup is if there is an agency that is a Flock agency and they have a specific license plate that they would like to run, and you've probably saw if you looked at the audit that one of those, let's say it was an agency in North Carolina, for example, looked for a specific plate number and they listed the reason that they were looking for that and they listed the crime that they were using to look for that. Mm-hmm. All that would give them is, it would not give them the pictures, it wouldn't give them any of the metadata, it would tell them where it hit, when it hit, and in what jurisdiction, if it did. So that's different than the Colorado agencies, because the Colorado agencies, if they queried a license plate or even one of the advanced search features, that would also give the Colorado agencies the pictures of the vehicle, the metadata, and all of that. So that's what we talk about sharing the data.
Okay. I think that's an important distinction, and that makes sense to me. So it's a much more limited scope of what they can see on the nationwide if you're an opted-in Flock database user.
Correct.
But in Colorado, you can get dents on the vehicles, bumper stickers.
Correct. And if it's a nationwide lookup, they can't. And so if, like, let's say that this North Carolina, this fictional town, is looking for this license plate for a homicide suspect, and it did hit one of our cameras, they would then have to reach out to us at that point and talk to our investigations bureau, and that's when that full investigative part happened. Okay. So for them to get any further information on that, they'd have to talk to our detectives.
Okay. one more, just sticking with flock. I think with flock. I do have a question. I saw today that the police department posted the crime statistics for the month. And on the bottom of there, it shows the number of flock hits, and then it also shows hot list hits. Is the hot list number representative of only the flock system, or is that flock and Axon both?
So the transparency portal that they have on there, it lists, I think it was about 2 million plates, which is kind of a misnomer because like if a car travels down a road that we have 3 cameras on, it's going to log that plate all 3 times. So it's not, does that make sense? So
Yes, it does.
so it'll log that plate number the 3 times. So that's what gives us that 2 million number. The hot list is actually the CCIC hot list. So
Right.
that is that's all that is.
But that's both Axon and
Same
flock
exact hot list.
can interact with that list.
Same exact
essentially.
hot
So
list.
that 5,000 some number is representative of a combination of hits between maybe something coming into an officer in the car and also any flock data that's comparing to that list.
So the hot list, yes. So the flock and Axon use the exact same hot list from CCIC.
Okay.
And that's everything from wanted persons to stolen cars to missing persons to an attempt to locate, anything like that. So those 5,000, if that was the number, that was 5,000 hits out of 2 million. Were actually on the hot list.
Right.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, and I believe
sorry.
I'm seeing tepid agreement that it's both Axon and flock.
Axon
data
and flock
feeding
both
into that
use.
number.
They,
Yep. Okay.
Yes.
The hits are from the hot list.
Yes.
So that comes from the state, so it hits
Got it.
And
the information.
It comes through different systems.
We
to feed into
did
the number,
not,
I think.
we did not, Councilmember, do anything on that flock transparency list with our Axon ALPR system yet. So
Okay.
the numbers you saw today
That's
are
just flock.
purely the flock ALPRs, not our in-car ALPRs, which are ran by Axon.
Okay. So eventually that number will be a combination
Yes,
of the two.
yes, yes, all one.
and those are 2 distinct separate systems as well.
Right. I understand that. I didn't know. Sometimes we see these numbers and I don't know exactly what they're representing, and I think it's useful information for the public. Okay, and then stepping off of flock and Axon and the data pieces, in the presentation there was, in the accountability and transparency section, it references supervisors conducting after-action reviews to ensure policy compliance and consistent decision-making. How often does that occur?
I'll jump in there really quick. All of the time. So if there's any question at all about an officer's conduct or about any use of force or a vehicle pursuit, for example, or anything like that, our first line supervisors will go back and review that information, that body cam or that in-car camera footage almost instantaneously. Like once they see
Once
the
the scene
report,
is secure.
yeah, once the scene is secure and all those things, they'll go back and review that to see if there was anything that could be improved upon, or if there was any policy violations or anything like that. And then Sergeant Disner can also talk to, he's the sergeant over our Professional Standards Bureau. And so any officer complaint, his team uses the in-car cameras, the body cams, things of that nature to go through and either substantiate the complaint or not.
Okay. So it's not a routine after every single encounter, but if it's a more serious incident and there's any kind of allegation or the thought that there could be an allegation, then we go in and monitor to make sure that we're tight on our policies and that our officers are following what they should.
And that's a specific point of emphasis for us is, when somebody calls or somebody at the scene says, hey, I saw this officer do something, we don't just dismiss that as, oh, it's probably fine, something like that. We have the video, we have the audio, we have the means to look into it, and we just do it.
Okay. All right, that's all I have for now, I think. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
answers.
Member Summerson.
Hi, again. Thank you for the presentation. Very specifically, I want to have a discussion about flock, not ALPRs in general. I know we now have that system in Axon, so I do have some ALPR and drone questions, but specifically, I'm interested in understanding, I think one of the things I had asked for in one of the previous meetings was an understanding of what would happen if we did terminate the flock contract. What would be how would we use the ALPRs through the Axon system or other tools or technologies that are at your disposal to do the work? It is clear from a lot of community feedback that there is a distrust of flock as a system, as a company. It has proven itself to not be reliable. There are a number of documented cases in which flock information has been given without knowledge of a department to other law enforcement or other bodies that are asking for it. So I just feel very strongly that flock itself is not a company that the city, the police department, that we should be doing business with, and that we should be focusing our attention on creating opportunities to strengthen guardrails, to support our officers, to support our residents through these other surveillance systems. I do have some flock questions, but I would be curious to know if we were to terminate the flock contract for the stationary cameras specifically, what would that look like?
Well, let me, the basic answer is this. The Englewood Police Department is agnostic as to name brands. We are agnostic to, I guess I should say on the record, I have no financial investment in any of these companies whatsoever. My job, as you all have hired me and paid me to do, is to keep Englewood as safe as humanly possible. I think that Flock Camera does that. I have had conversations with several community members. As a view, I've looked up every negative Flock thing I can find on the internet, looked at court cases, reached out to the Conference of Mayors Subcommittee on Social and Criminal Justice. I have done about everything I can for due diligence to look into Flock. I understand the concerns. I don't want to speak out of turn. What I would do is, I think that there are other options available. And if the council is prerogative is to terminate the Flock contract, I guess my only feedback or pushback would be that we have something else to take its place, and that we do not create a technological black hole or create an environment that is inviting to criminal activity. I guess for the record, I would say that perhaps I disagree with some of the feedback on Flock. With that being said, I'll just stop there.
And council member, to more specifically address, are there other stationary LPRs? And the answer is yes. Sergeant Disner has looked into some of these. I've looked into some of these. Axon does have what they call their outpost and light post systems, which are, again, stationary automatic license plate readers that feed off of the CCIC hot list, that their data is kept in evidence.com, in our little corner of evidence.com. And so if we were to lose the flock safety ALPRs, like the chief said, that would be something that we would like to pursue then, would be to use Axon, since we've already got a relationship with Axon and evidence.com. It would be the way to go. The downside to it is that Axon's ALPR cameras are not as prevalent right now as Flock's cameras, and so any of the search features that we would use through Axon, we would get a much smaller, there's a much smaller database through Axon right now, until Axon does grow potentially for those after action investigative leads. Does that make sense?
All right, then, to dig in on Flock. I am curious, former member Wright had made a council request 1036 some time ago. In that particular request, there were 5 million reads over a 2-month period of time. There were, at that time, only 5 acknowledged stops or recoveries that were tagged with flock in that request. Is that an accurate read of that situation?
Yes and no. And because the council has asked for this in the past. So in that council request, we had not, weird way to say this, we had not been tracking flock hits on reports. So what I had to do to go back, and that was a 2-month thing, 2-month, I had to go back and hand search reports for the word flock and put together those stats specifically for that council request. So yes, in that 2-month period, I don't remember if you said there was 5, then there was 5 arrests or whatever made off of that. But I had to go back and hand search that. Since this council had asked us to beef up our reporting technology on that, we have added another feature onto our record management CAD system, computer-aided dispatch system, that does list whether it was a flock or an Axon received type. And so we are able to know just within the last month. So we're able to now go in and search that instead of me hand searching every RMS report. And so we're able to pull all those now. So does that answer your question?
It does, but I think the question then be where do we find that information, right? Like it's very readily available. What seems to be an average of 2.5 million. I feel like a lot of these reports always show there's 2.5 million reads per month. There's 5,000 hotlisted. It's interesting that it continues to sort of just play itself out in those averages.
It may be.
Yeah, but I'm curious because I think if the 5 holds, right, that's 1 in a million. And so to then say that stationary cameras are tantamount to being able to do the work if it's a 1 in a million situation. Now, I appreciate that you said it was hand pulled. We've done a lot now to tag, and so I would just be interested in understanding a little bit more about what that actually nets if it's not. So,
not sure I understand the question. I'm sorry.
If there's only 5 actions on that 2-month period of time, which you did hand searching, there were 5 million reads, which means there was only 1 action per million. So that's literally a 1 in a million.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Again, that was me hand searching to try to give examples of the real life, what our cameras did for us during that 2-month period. I think that it goes beyond that because once you have that integrated, the ALPRs, the stationary cameras, integrated with your real-time information center or your Dronesense first responders or any of those things, the reactive part of that is more robust because you're able to go to that area sooner, launch a drone sooner, look for that vehicle sooner because you're able to get something in the air, for example, a drone. The example we showed in that video was an officer that got an in-car hit on a stolen vehicle near Dartmouth and Galapago and was able to go to the area, they were close enough, and find the car. That's how that has been happening on a reactive basis. A lot of the information we do use is investigative for the flock safety cameras or the ALPR cameras. I would say probably, I don't know, I'd have to say more than half, way more than half, if I'm looking over the officers that use it, is the investigative part of it. And that gets really hard to quantify in terms of a detective going back and using the ALPR system to search for different things, different plate numbers, tie together multi-jurisdictional criminal events, things of that nature. So the investigative part of it is probably almost more robust than the reactive part. And that's really hard to quantify.
So in terms of the ALPR information itself, one of the main issues that people raise for flock is specifically its storage, right? So I know I asked about use. What would you do if you didn't have it? So thank you for all of the information on that. Beyond that, though, there is a whole other component of this, right? Which is that then information of people traveling through Englewood, living in Englewood, going about their business in Englewood, that information is then stored, right, nationally with varying degrees of access points to that. I know you talked about a nationwide lookup. So I have a question on that, which specifically is if that license plate in North Carolina, as you said, if that hits, we do then share that information with states, right?
We can, yeah,
Okay.
for investigative purposes, absolutely.
Yeah, and have we ever declined, or do we generally say yes?
No,
to
we
all
would
of those
generally say
requests?
yes to an agency that's investigating a crime, for sure.
Okay, and how that is notated as a crime, for example, I'll just say there are a number of documented instances of officers searching for ex-spouses, ex-girlfriends, utilizing the system. And so in that particular case, can they log a crime from North Carolina that would hit that license plate and we would just agree to that without, you know what I mean? Like, how do we know? Again, I want to be very clear, this does not have to do with the Englewood Police Department, that when this does come up into the storage system, there is an issue with then also needing a variety of law enforcement organizations and agencies and the federal government and whoever else can access this to also share similar values, right?
I think to answer your question, that if a police officer anywhere in the country broke the law and fraudulently put in a crime that didn't commit in order to stalk an ex, let's say, we would never know. Obviously, we would never knowingly facilitate that. The guardrail against that is that officer would face criminal prosecution and surely termination associated with that from his agency, his or her agency. To the extent, look, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen officer misconduct, certainly. Here in Englewood, I guess to be on record, we take action when our officers participate in misconduct or criminal activity. We take proper responses to that. I think that in a cost-benefit analysis, the benefit of being able to track criminals across the country much outweighs any potential misconduct by a police officer elsewhere.
On the sorry, I'm trying to think of where that led me to. Apologize. Colorado. So you explained nationwide lookup. Very limited way for them to search, very limited information they get back. They have to call and acknowledge, and there needs to be a conversation. In Colorado, are those searches able to be done by any of the features that are captured by the camera? So can you do a search that is a license plate? Can you do a search that is a car? Can you do a search that is a bumper sticker?
Yes.
Okay. And so in terms of a number of bumper stickers having First Amendment speech on it, what are the safeguards that are in place if someone in another jurisdiction or wanted to be searching for particular bumper stickers that might be associated with particular groups of people?
Yeah, I think that the main question. I think that the main I guess the main protection in place for that would be the officers violating the Constitution, the officers violating the law, and that officer would be putting their career and freedom on the line.
And actually, to be completely specific, it's not that specific. You can't put in a search feature that looks for words. It's just number of bumper stickers or orange bumper sticker or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's no words. You can't search words.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand is a little bit more about what the actual search parameters
you can't search
are,
words.
Right? So.
Yeah, it's not that specific at all.
Okay. And then on the the Axon cameras that are installed on the cars, how many approximately is that? I'm not sure I've seen a number yet. I don't know how many squad cars you have, sorry.
21 total. Okay.
Great. And as those are driving around and collecting reads of license plates, what are the safeguards in place for those systems that are similar to what we should be following with Flock in terms of if you're driving by Swedish or you're driving by Craig or some other hospital or healthcare setting, you're collecting license plates, right? Because it's reading them.
I can address that. Axon, the Axon rep actually addressed that during the last study session, and those plates fall off. If it's not a hot list, that plate does not get stored.
At all?
At all.
Okay.
That's what the Axon representative told us at the last study session.
Great. I think retention of the data is an important factor for a lot of this, whether it's Flock or Axon or drones or whatever, right? If you're driving down the street, it scans a plate, whether it's near a healthcare institution, just because I happen to have my car parked in front of my house. I don't know that I need to be in a system for 30 days, waiting to see if something happens down the road or someone from North Carolina is looking for my license plate number. So
to be perfectly clear as well, I mean, these cameras are not taking pictures of anything on private property. These cameras are taking pictures where there is no expectation of privacy, public roadways.
Right, which is my car parked in front of the house. But still, if I've committed no crime, I'm not sure that that for 30 days the entire nation can search for me through me being parked in front of the house. So, and again, I'm being a little glib here, and I apologize, or not. Maybe I don't apologize, but I'm being a little glib because I think this is just the general conversation that's happening out in the community, and so trying to utilize a study session for what it should be, right, which is an opportunity to just share how it's being presented to me, share some thoughts that I have, just trying to really get a dialogue going.
Look,
so I appreciate the responses.
I couldn't agree more. This is when our citizens elect you all, I think that they expect to have their concerns voiced to the people that are in charge. The police department has a great deal of authority and a great deal of responsibility. We should be held accountable. I have no contention whatsoever. This is what I think legitimizes government. It legitimizes policing, and I think it's important that our citizens, whether it sees the police department and sees their city council advocating for them, even if there's I think that they should see that we are working together to keep them safe and to keep their personal privacy what it is, and where everybody can come out as comfortable as possible. I've done this a long time. We're not going to please everybody. I totally understand that. But I know a lot of other people are speaking tonight, but this is our direction, and we're here for this. Yeah,
thank you. I do have some other questions, but I'll let my colleague jump in.
Thank you, Member Summerson. Member Russell, and then Member Bethel.
Thank you. So my question probably mostly goes to the Flock camera system. So it's not just looking for stolen cars with the license plate readers. It's also identifying potential crimes that have been committed by certain car, which means their license plate. Is that correct?
It could be any crime, not just stolen cars.
Okay. And so, I mean, I think it's said in here that Flock only maintains these for 30 days, meaning if no police department has reached out to get information in search of a crime. So when other jurisdictions contact the Englewood Police Department for information regarding a specific license plate and crime, and we give them access to that, do they give us a reason why they're wanting to look at that?
Yes, any search at all in the Flock system requires there's a drop-down menu on the search function that requires a criminal justice reason. So it'll say wanted for an assault or a stolen car or it's all based on our RMS system, our record management system, what's called NIBRS codes. And so if there's a NIBRS code for a shoplift, they can put the reason as shoplift. But to answer your question, I think if the read is over 30 days old, they won't get they won't get a result because the information is no longer there.
Dave Leclerc, are you on the line?
Yes,
Division Chief Leclerc is in training in Quantico, and I know that he has looked up some of these, and I wanted to ask him specifically, but I know that there's like a time restriction where it says this has exceeded the 30 days or something like that.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think some of the concern from people that I have talked to is the fact, actually it looks like Leclerc is on the, I just saw him
Yes,
on
I'm
there.
here.
But
Can you
Dave, are
hear
you
me?
on there?
Okay.
Yes,
They
can
have
you hear me?
bad connection. He warned me ahead of time it would be bad connection.
okay, that's fine. Some of the concern is Flock is not a government institution. They're a private institution selling the information to a lot of police departments. And the concern is that Flock themselves may be using that data to track individual. My telephone tracks wherever I go. It tells me how long it takes to get home. Every time they think I get in the car, if I'm not at home, I'm going home. So how do we know that Flock isn't capitalizing on this information as well?
How do we know? I'll say that the protection that is in place is part of the contract. And I think Jackson Higgins, the last time he was here, kind of talked about it would violate our contract that we have with them. The remedy to that, or the protection there, would be civil lawsuit, I guess. I would defer to City Attorney Niles on exactly how that remedy would work through that process, but it would violate our contract with them, and there would also be market. The market would correct that as well, because it would violate, I assume, all of their contracts, and it would have a detrimental effect on their business.
Right. However, I'm not sure that they are violating their contract with our police department. I just really wonder if they're violating our constitutional rights by tracking us and selling that information to whoever would be interested in that.
I might be wrong, but I know there's a prohibition in the contract against them using any of our information that the EPD owns, because it's very specific in their contract. I'd have to look it up, but I think we went through this in another city council meeting, reference what that was. Mayor, do you remember that? I'm sorry.
I don't
mean to put you on the spot. We did go through this in a meeting with, I think it was Jackson that was here, and we went through that specific part of the contract. But
okay,
yeah,
so
they're not allowed to use that information.
okay, so all the Flock cameras in Englewood that are tracking all the cars that go through here, ultimately that belongs to the city of Englewood and the Englewood Police Department.
That is what our contract says, is that data belongs to EPD.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. All right, I think that's all the questions I have for right now. Thank you.
All right, Member Bethel?
A couple of responses real quick. Member Summerson, you asked about what the consequences would be for the termination of our flock agreement. There was one other piece in our contract. There is a $500 per removal or per unit fee should we terminate the flock contract. So for each camera that they have to uninstall, it's $500. I also wanted to comment that to Member Russell's question on this ALPR
Mayor,
data that's...
point of order, please.
Yes, go ahead, Member Russell.
I think this isn't conversation between council members. This is questioning the people that are here. And so I think that we could have this conversation after.
Once we get into comments.
Yes.
Regardless.
Okay, then I have a comment that is more in line with how ALPR data is collected and used at a citywide level beyond just the city's flock contract.
Okay.
Is that okay?
yes, and you can ask the police if that confirms with your understanding.
To my understanding, there are private companies that make their business model around the collection of ALPR data. Is that correct?
I know that there are some companies that use, I know I've seen them around in town with, I think they use for like repoing cars and things like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a specific company I'm thinking of called DRN, the Digital Recognition Network. They contract specifically with repo companies. They send private vehicles that have ALPRs on their vehicles, and they kind of cruise up and down streets or in parking lots. That information is for sale. Is that correct?
I would defer to you on that.
I don't know.
I'm just not familiar with those. I'm not personally familiar with that.
I'm not either.
There is a possibility. Through Axon, we have CCIC and CIC upload their hot list to our product. They can upload it. They cannot pull anything out of there. We can also create a hot list of stolen cars from Englewood specifically, or other information that we can enter into that system, and it can pull that information. There is a possibility that a tow company, for example, could upload a list of their vehicles that they need to repossess and put those into a system similar to that and have their cars read the license plate and see if it's a vehicle that way. I don't think it wouldn't pull from CCIC or NCIC data or any of our law enforcement data.
I think that covers my question sufficiently.
In anything like that.
Yeah, Englewood in our flock data doesn't feed into the privately held databases.
No.
Correct.
Thank you. Another question I have, Denver recently switched their ALPR system to Axon, and their impetus for this was to create a Denver-only data network with their Axon system. How has that change impacted your ability to track vehicles across the Front Range and through the Denver metro area?
I can tell you that our crime analyst, we have a crime analyst that works with all the other agencies in the metro, and she has told us that if a car goes into Denver, they're calling that a black hole right now, that nobody can search anything that goes into Denver anymore. And so we actually had a crime bulletin up and in roll call the other day, and I was sitting next to our crime analyst, and this is informal information, but she said, if that car's in Denver, they're not going to find it now. That Denver did that Denver-only system. And we haven't even reached out to Denver to ask to use their system at all yet, because it's an invite-only system. Axon is, that's why it's different than Flock. But just that's the information our crime analyst gave us.
It sounds like there is an option with Axon to be a part of their nationwide network.
There is no nationwide network in Axon. They do not have a nationwide lookup at all.
Great.
They also, the difference with Axon as well is Flock is on a rolling 30-day retention period. With Axon's ALPR data, the stationary cameras, agencies can set that for whatever they want it to be. So it can be as little as 3 days or as much as 30. So that's a custom feature on Axon's stationary cameras.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And ours is currently set for 30 days for hits and reads through the vehicle.
All right. Thank you, Member Bethel. Member Ward?
I just wanted to circle back to the previous discussion about the use of data, how Flock can use our data. Based on my recollection of that contract when I read it, it's pretty discretionary. There's some clause in there that says, in the best interest of the community, or based on Flock's determination or something along those lines, which could mean virtually anything and still be compliant with the contract.
Thank you, Member Ward. I know we've had a lot of discussion, Member Summerson. I'll come back to you because I know that you have some unfinished questions, but I just want to state for the record, just because we're having conversations on this and eventually we're going to have to give direction on this. And so I'm just going to state my direction on where I think that we should go as a council, me personally, on where I feel. But So I'll just say right now, like the Dronesense, and now that we moved to Axon, I don't have as much of a concern at this moment based on how those two systems are working. And Chief, and I know that this has been an uncomfortable conversation, but this has always been about how our data is being used and whether or not it's being misused. And I have more concern with Flock than I do with the other two systems at this point. But I'm also not in the position where I want to take away tools from our city police. So my preference would be that we do look to move away from Flock and look to use Axon as a replacement for the ALPR solution. Deputy Chief, I know that you just mentioned that there may be some, and I'm happy that that question was asked by Member Bethel in terms of whether or not there's a black hole now with Denver because of their decision to move to just that Denver-only portal in a sense. But based on just how the information has been used by Flock in the past, I just have concerns about how that data is being misused. And I'm hoping that, over the next 60 days or 90 days, if we start moving in the direction of moving away from Flock, that we can look for a suitable replacement with Axon or with some other provider to provide the ALPR. Because I know, Deputy Chief, I think you answered the council request. There was an accident right outside my house that there was an accident, argument ensued, that one of the guys ended up leaving the scene, just fled the scene. But then we were able to find him because of the ALPRs that we had within the city. There was another citizen that basically mentioned that there was a pedestrian that was hit, and ALPR cameras within the city was able to find the car not too long after that pedestrian was hit on Yale and Broadway. So there's many instances where these ALPRs are providing a benefit to the city. I don't want to see them go away, but I just have a concern with the way that Flock is distributing the data outside of what we consider its intended use. So go ahead, Deputy Chief.
Yeah, just like the chief said, we're not brand specific, to be quite frank. We just want to use the technology.
Yeah.
And real quick, as far as Denver right now, Denver's made a decision right now. They're not sharing their data with anyone.
Yeah.
And so that's what's made Denver's system obviously unusable for us because they're not sharing it with us or Aurora or any other metro city. So that's why I think Denver's become that. Because we can't search even on the Axon system, even if they were to invite us, which they're not going to.
Yeah.
And once that car goes north of Yale or the north of Evans, then we won't be able to track
that would not be my intent with this. I would still want to share that information with municipalities in the way that Axon makes that data available, as we know through our cameras within the dash cams. So that's kind of where I fall on this. I know there was other questions, Member Summerson, that you want to ask, but I just wanted to put that on the record. Actually, Mayor Pro Tem, did you have something before I go to Member Summerson?
You can come back. I just wanted to weigh in on my but if
okay.
you've got more questions.
Go ahead, Member Summerson.
Just a question on that. So the Flock contract has an expiration date, but set to auto renew. Is that correct?
We have to ask Trudy from procurement.
Okay.
Trudy says yes.
And so in terms of determining where there might be a time frame, I think you said 30, 60, 90 days. So being specific with what that would be, and then also setting the contract to expire so that there is a date certain in which Flock is removed from the city of Englewood, I think would be something to consider based on the feedback you just shared.
Yeah, that was just my thought. I just wanted to throw that out there, and then obviously we can discuss about what that looks like. Anything else, Member Summerson?
I have some questions on drones if we want to talk about those for a minute. There's a reference to a drone policy, a robust policy. Where is that policy? I'm not sure that I was able to find that policy.
I believe I attached it.
Was it?
I may not have. All of our policies are online as well on the front page of the police department website. But I thought if I did not attach it, that's my mistake. Okay. I can get that to council.
Is there a reason that a majority of the policies that are shared with us, ALPR is one, I'm not sure about the drone one, they're marked draft?
They all are marked draft, yeah. City Attorney, Deputy City Attorney McDermott And I talked about that not too long ago. When it gets downloaded from the master system, they're all marked with draft on the watermark.
Okay. City attorney, any comments on it?
They are drafts. We don't know why the watermark is doing that. They're in final form, so it's confusing. We're sorry.
Okay. It is confusing, and I think it's good for the public to be aware because people have downloaded them or are interested in seeing them, and it appears as if they are drafts. So whatever clarity, perhaps even where the point of download is, making that clear might be helpful to people who are downloading them. Just one last comment on the drones themselves. You mentioned something about drone as first responders. So is that an introduction of some other opportunity that's being explored and will be presented to council at some point to expand the drone surveillance system?
Ultimately, what I would like to have is a comprehensive technology package that is constitutionally sound, Colorado state sound, that is good for public safety, that creates an environment where our interactions, frankly, with non-law-abiding citizens are done more safely. And some places if you look up online, you might see real-time crime centers. There's another kind of subset of that called a real-time information center. I've spoken a little bit with our IT department about just how comprehensive a properly put together technology platform is. It's something that during the hiring process that I've wanted to do. I came from a different agency, and every year, based on the budget, we bought different technologies, and none of them talked to each other, and it was. It is. And,
they just never talk to each other. I'm just well aware of this fact now.
That is something that we have been very disciplined about, of trying to match technology with needs and balance all of that with privacy and really just constitutional best practices and balance all of these things together. And, the mayor kind of mentioned this being an uncomfortable conversation for me. Maybe it's really just that it's balancing my experience and knowledge of police stuff, and also embracing the direction from the council, and just balancing those two things. It like I said, it's really not uncomfortable. It is just it's that balance point of doing what's best for our citizens.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to weigh in on?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for all the detailed information. I know responded to a lot of council requests and a lot of questions from council. And I'm all for the drones, the body cameras, the car mounted ALPRs that just hit the hot list, and all of those. I have a problem principally with the stationary ALPR cameras. And the challenge I have with them is I don't, not mistrust of the police department or anything like that. It's what I'm worried about is a time that comes where suddenly there's some kind of a federal emergency or state emergency or something like that, and the laws suddenly change, or there's maybe it's an immigration emergency, or maybe it's a pandemic emergency, and suddenly now all this data that's on file you're able to track. And somebody gets tracked, or that data becomes available to different levels of government, and anybody can be tracked at that point. And I don't like that in principle. So what I would like to do is eliminate the stationary cameras altogether. Neither vendor, but keep all the other tools available and at the police disposal. But I don't like the government tracking us everywhere we go.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Member Prang.
Thank you. Before I weigh in on my thoughts on that piece of it, I did have one question on the Dronesense footage or whatever we capture. It stated in the presentation that that was housed in the digital evidence area. Is that our servers here in the city and
Yeah,
secured the same?
evidence.com.
On what?
Evidence.com.
Oh, that's
all of our digital,
Dronesense is on.
all of our digital evidence, photographs that are taken of crime scenes, body worn camera, any digital evidence at all is housed in evidence.com.
With the exception of the Vigilon
With
system?
yes, a Vigilon is if we use it for a crime case. So if a Vigilon footage becomes evidence, it is kept in evidence.com on the retention schedule.
Okay, perfect. That is very helpful. So I guess to that end, I mean, as much as I had heartburn, and that's the favorite word on council apparently lately, about evidence.com being such a massive system, the more that we've learned and talked about Axon and then the use of evidence.com, it just seems like there's more embedded safety and security for our data and the use of our data and the accessing of our data. And I hear you, Chief, on the black hole piece of things. I think we should be careful how we talk about that. And I don't want to use that language in the sense of making the public feel more fearful that if council does head in a direction of making shifts on what tools we're using, that somehow we're going to reduce the public safety. I think the goal is to get the police department the package of tools as comprehensively as we can, but also use tools that we have to balance, like your practices and your experiences on the police department with the concerns of citizens. And I think as much as we have faith in the integrity of our police department and how our police department has used data, with the flock system, it is known and it has been proven repeatedly that maybe members outside of our police department have not always had integrity in how the flock data is used. And so, there's that fine balance of if we were to make a shift and still provide for the stationary cameras and we don't have as robust of a database that we're accessing, and that is a pain point, and I hear you on that. But I also feel that maybe it's a pain point that we should experience, and maybe, over time we get that robustness of the database built back up, but using a system that seems to be a little more credible and have some safety features that we as elected officials can give greater confidence to our residents to say, maybe not everyone loves the stationary cameras, but we're still going to use them because it's a good tool and we can prove that, there's some crime solving that happens through them, but we're going to use it within a system that is maybe a little more reliable. So I guess to that end, I would be more leaning in the direction of shifting to the Axon tools that are available as well.
Thank you, Member Prang. Anyone else want to weigh in? Go ahead, Member Ward.
I think I'm somewhat aligned with Member Prang and to a certain extent Member Anderson on this. I know because you guys have told me, I go on ride-alongs, I go to roll calls. I know that this is an incredibly powerful tool for solving crimes in Englewood and for investigating crimes and even to a certain extent deterring people from coming here to commit crimes in the first place. That said, I'm pretty dogmatic on the topic of public records. And each time we're collecting information from a license plate read that takes place in a public area, it's been determined that we're not violating the Fourth Amendment because there's no right to privacy, but we are creating a record that the government houses. And if we choose not to release that record because it's not in the public interest to release it, then we're also creating a bit of a power imbalance. And that power imbalance concerns me a bit. And the concept of how we create, store, and either distribute or refuse to distribute the data also concerns me a bit. And that's one of the things that I'm having trouble with, is we as government officials are custodians of a large amount of data. Some of that data cannot be released. For instance, you can't get a copy of my tax return. Why? Because everybody thinks that their tax return should be private. And so the government holds that record because it's necessary for filing, but they hold it private because it's only necessary for the relationship between me and the government. The license plates that go on my car are public. I drive everywhere with the license plate on my car. It's the same plate everywhere I go. I don't change them out every day. And so that line is increasingly difficult for me to navigate because of what the license plate leads to. It can tell you where I was, when I was there, how often I went there, how I got there, those types of things. And it can tell you that about a large number of people. And who holds that data, how it gets used, all of that formula hasn't quite settled to my satisfaction. And that's where I'm struggling a bit with this concept. Not prepared to take any specific action right now, but I am sympathetic to my fellow council members who are, because I'm not sure that we have landed on the best solution at this time. It might be the best one for right now, but I'm not confident that it's actually the best one altogether.
Thank you very much, Member Ward. Member, did you?
I had a follow-up question.
Go ahead.
Member Ward's comments, because it's something that occurred to me. The premise of collecting and storing the data from the license plates is that it's public information. You're collecting public information on the public right of way. Why isn't that subject to a core request?
I don't know.
Is there any legal reason somebody couldn't say, my neighbor license plate XYZ123 has been driving around this town. I want to know where they've been. Please provide the data on that.
I know that it exists, council member. I just don't have the information at my fingertips. But I know that the answer to that does exist, and I think I saw it in the last week.
Well,
I
I would also just to point out that, kind of like we discussed in the presentation, they have to give a reason. Anybody requesting this information has to give a reason for us to release it.
But I'm not asking who it is.
Right.
I'm just asking for the license plate. I know a license plate number, and I want to know where that car's been. This is public information collected on the premise that it's public information. Why can't it be released on that same premise?
Deputy Chief, are you able to provide us a response? Maybe not tonight. If you're able to do so tonight, but I think it's a legitimate question that Mayor Pro Tem is asking because, yeah, it seems to be, sounds like there is an answer, but.
There is an answer. And I will find it, maybe not tonight.
Let's get to Member Bethel and then give you more time. Go ahead, Member Bethel.
I just wanted to comment. I've mentioned this before, but Flock's second largest customer after police agencies are HOAs. And I can identify a half a dozen HOAs within 2 miles of here that have Flock cameras set up. Flock is prolific. It's everywhere. I don't like them, and I would much prefer that we move to an Axon-based system if we're going to use stationary cameras. But that's not going to prevent Flock from operating within Englewood. Just going to prevent us from using Flock.
Thank you very much, Member Bethel. Member Russell.
I just have another question, and I vaguely remember reading this in one of the council requests of how many crimes have been solved using Flock cameras. And I don't think it wasn't very many, or if any at all.
We weren't able to provide an exact number because, again, it's kind of like we explained earlier, we were not tracking we weren't tracking those Flock hits.
We were not tracking the correlation between how we determined a vehicle was involved, i.e. a Flock hit, visual, a neighbor pointing it out. We've identified the vehicle, and that is something that we've started. We put that into CAD. to have kind of a code so that we could track that a little bit better.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't want to weigh in right this second because I think other people have had their lights on, and I will weigh in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell, and then I guess Member Summerson.
I have a question. So there's been multiple points of reference to the EPD owning the information based on the terms of agreement with Flock. There was a change to the terms of service, terms of condition in 2026, February 2026. I think it was right before, right after this last presentation, that created some public uproar around that line in which police departments no longer owned it in the way that it previously was extremely clear. Flock has had their reasons or rationale as to why they think they're right. There still seems to be some concern that that point that we continue to reference may not actually exist. So one, I'd want to look into that, even especially if we intend to keep this system in place for a little bit longer. And then I do have a question just in terms of all of these technologies. As we all know, right, if we're using whatever we're using, their terms of service always pop up. It's really long. Most of us likely do not read it. We hit agree. What is the process for these terms of service agreement changes within the surveillance technologies especially? And what are the protocols we have? What protocols do we have in place for who accepts those terms of service agreements, right? Like I'm imagining a lot, right? One is that whoever's the first person that turns on the computer in the morning, this big long thing pops up. That's likely not what happens, but there are changes to terms of service that are outside a contract that happen regularly that either need to be accepted or are just automatically accepted, and I'm trying to understand that process.
I'm not aware of any terms of service that have changed in Flock, for example. If you're talking about the warning that pops up every time you log into Flock, that tells you the use of the system and what is permissible in what states or whatever. I mean, I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I wasn't referring to that warning. I think I'm referring to the fact that I don't understand how the terms of service or terms of condition changes are submitted for these technologies, whether they come back for legal review, whether they are submitted in a way in which the police department understands there's been a change to the back-end agreement, right? The scope of services that's attached to the contract, essentially.
I'm confirming with...
Actually, I think that may be a better question for our city attorney. City attorney, like terms of service, I'm assuming that they still have to come back through our city attorney's office because I can't see that falling outside of the contracted language that we have with Flock or any.
Generally, yes, we would have to approve it to become part of the contract. However, we do see that people just send us an updated notice or updated privacy notice, and if you agree, continue using the service. I mean, we see that on, as a user, I see that online all the time. Generally, though, our contract states that you can't amend the contract unless we both agree to it. So if it is a provision that is within our contract, in order to be binding, they would have to come back to us. Council would have to approve it. We'd have to sign it. Now that it wouldn't surprise me if people try to amend the contract nonetheless, simply by sending us an updated term of service. But technically, it wouldn't be legally binding if we already have a written contract.
I guess I'd be curious then whether or not the changes, Flock has it documented specifically on their own websites. They are aware that they changed the terms of service agreements in February 2026. So I guess I would want to know, it's probably a good test case then of how that has filtered or not filtered through our systems, either through the city attorney's office or the police department, in terms of whether it was accepted, whether it's not accepted, again, whether it's a scope change versus a contract change. I don't know if the EPD ownership of data was originally in the contract or if it was in these terms of service agreements, which again can be multiple documents. So I would be curious to use that as an example of how these terms of service agreements flow through the system so that we can also create the proper protocols for them to make sure, especially with surveillance tools, that those terms of service are reviewed thoroughly by the city attorney's office or whoever we determine that to be.
Thank you, Member Summerson. Anything you want to add in terms of the direction? I don't think I got that from you specifically, but go ahead.
I mean, my direction is that I believe we should terminate the flock contract and remove the stationary cameras. I think whether I would like to have a conversation about whether stationary cameras are important at all with a different company, but that's my position.
Okay. So you fall in line with, I believe it was, with Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem also would like to not see any stationary cameras within the city.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know more. I mean, not know more. I guess I do know. The presentation was good. Thank you for answering the large number of questions that I've had on that. I think it's just, again, I am not, I believe this feels somewhat like a little game of whack-a-mole, right? So we discuss flock and then Axon pops up and now they're stationary cameras. The federal government decides to, without warrant or with a warrant, tap into our information that's stored on evidence.com. And then initiates an immigration enforcement issue or targets trans folks from Kansas who are no longer allowed to drive under their gender markers. You know what I mean? So I have concerns about it in general. So
thank you, Member Summerson. Member Russell, did you want to weigh in as well?
Yes, thank you very much. And I just want to thank the police department for all the input on this. And I greatly appreciate how safe you keep our city. And with that said, I have the same concerns that Mayor Pro Tem Anderson has about the government using it against us at some point. And so I would like to see all the stationary cameras removed also. Benjamin Franklin quoted this a long time ago: those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And I just think it's, we need to protect our rights. And I thank you for the conversation and for all you do to keep us safe.
Thank you, Member Russell. Appreciate that. So right now, we're not really in alignment one way or another in terms of how we want to move. Or we had 3 people that would like to move forward with potentially looking at Axon, or there's 3 of us that would like to look at Axon as a replacement for flock. We have one that status quo, Member Ward, just more information I think is what you're looking for at this point. And then 3 that don't want any stationary cameras at all. So what I was proposing as part of our next steps, if we had a majority, was over the next 90 days, I'm thinking 90 just because we have within a month, we're going to take our 2-week break. And then soon thereafter, at 60 days, is coming back from our 2-week break. I was thinking 90 days will give staff enough time to provide basically just a write-up of what other options there would be to flock if we were to move in that direction in 90 days. But since we don't have a majority of council, I'm going to ask council, would you want staff to still look in 90 days, if we were to move away from flock, what are our possible options? With or without stationary cameras? Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
So are you suggesting we go ahead and give direction to eliminate the flock cameras and then evaluate other options?
What the next option would be for that, yes.
I'm fine with that.
My only concern is that right now it sounds like we're kind of like at an impasse. I don't want staff to do work over this next 90 days if we don't have a majority in council that wants us to move in a different direction. But it still may be worth the effort just because it does sound like we want to change from the current.
I think it's worth the effort.
Yeah.
I mean, if council was on the line and it came down to, Member Ward still needs to make up. I think we need the case needs to be made for some other alternative, and maybe there will be a majority at that.
That's a good way to put it. That makes sense, Mayor Pro Tem. I see a bunch of lights being turned on and off, so go ahead, Member Prang.
Thank you. I think that we have a responsibility to hear more information on what alternatives can be. as much as a part of me does agree with, I'm not sure how comfortable I am with stationary cameras, but I also am hearing the years of experience and proponents of using systems like that. And I certainly don't want to put us in a position where we have nothing. Like, I think that's irresponsible, and we need to keep the community safe while we finalize this conversation. But I think that we have a duty to hear, an argument for a different kind of system and how that could be used based on, the feedback that's given tonight and all of the concerns, the various levels of concerns that council members have brought forward, and have that be in the tone of, knowing that council is attempting to get the right tools in place for the police department and give some, freedom in the expertise and what you do and knowing how you need to get done what you do, but also, addressing what's been brought forward from our community. We have to hear the information, make an informed decision, and know that it's not a criticism on the police department in any way, that there is still huge support for our police department in the work that's done every day and the sacrifice that is made every day. I'm going to keep saying it every time we have this conversation, because I know it is an uncomfortable conversation, but I believe we have a 100% duty to hear the alternatives and figure out if there is a safer option and how to proceed from there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Member Summerson?
I'm comfortable hearing about what other alternatives might be and if they address the storage or data safety concerns that are primarily driving the concern around Flock itself. I think for me, though, I would still like to understand how we can set a date certain to terminate Flock. I mean, I think it feels as if there's enough folks around the table who are interested in removing Flock. And although we may want to give some time to create a room for a replacement system, if there is no alternative that is acceptable, or if it then turns to be back to Flock that is the only one that's acceptable if we want stationary cameras, I'm still concerned. I would still like this contract to expire, and I would, at the very least, if we're not terminating it. And so I'm happy to hear alternatives, but also I do think we should be setting setting the stage for when Flock is removed from the city.
I think that this would be the next 90 days. Member Summerson, my intention is not to renew Flock when it comes due in April 1st, 2027. That's, I'll say now, that would be my intention, but I would prefer over the next 90 days that we find another system that we can implement pretty quickly before that April 1st date. That would be my preference. Member Ward.
We made reference to this a little bit earlier, but I think there are some private sector solutions. And by private sector, what I mean, Flock is a private sector company, but it's closed system. So it's closed to essentially government agents who use it, from what I understand. I see Member Bethel shaking his hand a bit on this, but I'm looking at like LexisNexis now. They apparently have a system of some sort. Member Bethel made reference to the hot car database earlier, where finance companies and what have you can use it for repossession. I think there might be some solutions like that. And one of the things about that gives me some comfort or satisfaction is the fact that levels the playing field. Because if you come to the table and you have money, and it doesn't matter who you are, you can buy this data from the company. So everybody has access or the opportunity to have access to the same data. And so we don't have that power shift there relative to the access of the data and the holding of the data. But again, I'm not willing to say that terminating the Flock contract is a foregone conclusion, but I believe I'm probably in the council minority here, and I would not be prepared to set a date certain tonight.
Right. Thank you very much, Member Ward. I think we do have a majority that does want to see a plan put in place within, or come back within 90 days on possible alternatives to Flock if we decide to move in that direction. Chief, do you have anything else to add? Any other?
I made a couple of note. My main note was not to overstep, but since you asked the question, we could be prepared to bring a presentation, and we could probably bring representatives from another company to discuss this in a study session in 60 or 90 days. We're pretty well versed in.
Okay.
There's really two main providers here, is Flock and Axon.
So 60 days will put us around just after the 4th of July. So
60 or 90 days. What?
So we could look at the council calendar and just find a date within that time period and have that conversation sometime in the summer. Go ahead, Deputy Chief.
Mayor, thank you so much. I just also wanted to remind you that part of our Flock contract is our camera trailer.
Yeah.
That does not have an ALPR on it. And so, which is right now parked right outside here. And so we do move that trailer every couple of weeks to different hotspots within the city, and our dispatchers and other people at the agency are the ones that actually, use that system for real-time information. So if we do cancel the Flock contract, we would be canceling that as well. So we have to look at alternatives for that as well.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask for you, was whether or not that was a standalone solution, because
it may have been
it
bundled,
doesn't capture.
to be honest, like bundle savings.
Yeah.
So because that's kind of what we're doing with Axon as well, is the more more you have with them, the more savings you get. So I think that's probably a bundle from Flock, but I'd have to look into that, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Chief. That standalone I don't have an issue with. It's just the rest of the cameras. Mayor Pro Tem, did that answer that? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Member Summerson.
I'm not sure I agree that I'm not sure that I would agree that there is not likely an issue with the standalone cameras either, and not that we don't need them. You mentioned it's parked outside tonight. So essentially anyone coming in to do government business within City Hall is recorded in some way. I guess I'm less knowledgeable about what data is collected by those stationary cameras, because there was a point in the PowerPoint where it talks about that also being stored somewhere for X number of days. And so what data is stored there, and how is that searchable, and is it more broad than just, like, if it's not an ALPR, is it just, what's it collecting?
Video, nothing else. Video, just video of what's going on around the trailer. No, it's not searchable, it's just video.
But then it is stored, right?
For 30 days.
Yeah.
Yep,
So it could be reviewed if there was a particular day of interest or whatever.
It's the exact same retention schedule as the Vigilon cameras around City Hall. It's the exact same and not searchable.
And are they left on, just like they're just on for wherever you've moved them, they're just on 24 hours, 7 days a week, wherever they are moved?
Yes.
Okay. So there's surveillance of movement around the city from the trailer that is then stored for a period of time. Okay.
Yes.
I'm not sure how I feel about that, but wanted to clarify that that's
It'll be
what
part of
that
the
trailer
conversation.
does.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Member Summerson. All right, Chief, anything else?
I appreciate the invitation and conversation.
Yep. Sergeant,
And
Deputy
direction.
Chief, thank you very much for the conversation tonight. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, very thankful for the conversation from members of council as well on the topic, so thank you so much. All right, everyone, we're moving on to reports from boards and commissions. Anything to add from any members tonight? All right, go ahead, Member Prang.
Thank you, Mayor. We had our Malley Trust Board meeting on May 4th. Main topic of conversation was the replacement of some tables and chairs in the front of the center. Both we talked about the lobby area, but then also what they call the buzz room, which is kind of like a side room that's used for various activities. The group was not comfortable funding the full ask, but it does sound like we'll get the lobby tables and chairs replaced. There's some ongoing, safety issues with the stability of the tables and the chairs themselves. There's some cleanliness issues. And it sounds like the Malley Center staff are literally like taking those round tables and having to roll them to move them around for events, etc. So we're looking at tables that have wheels on them so that our staff are safer and we can be nimble for events. So that was a good conversation, and I'm glad that we're able to look at approving a portion of the ask. And then the other real notable thing was just a conversation around maybe looking at some sort of reserve threshold for the Malley Trust funds. You know, it's not a fund that has consistent incoming revenue, and so just making sure that you know, that there's a cushion, if you will, and not just continuing to draw down the fund. So really good conversation. That would potentially be a goal that's set by the group on what to look at. And then last Friday, we also had another meeting for the Food Security Coalition Sugary Beverage Tax/fee group, and that work is still largely on pause. However, I do think that we will start seeing some presentations and maybe public comment so that the bottom line is that there needs to be a funding source for the food bank throughout the region created. And there are some food banks that are having to close and not having resources available. So that's the whole idea behind the sugary beverage tax. So as much as most representatives and councils are saying we have a lot going on and right now is not the right time, I think there's still a desire to have councils educated. So we should have some public comment and presentation on what that could look like if ever it comes forward with a regional ask of pursuing something like that. But largely just driving home the point that we still need to be talking about food security in general and how we're going to support our food banks throughout the region. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Member Prang. Seeing no one else for boards and commissions, council members' choice. I think I have actually just one item on council members' choice. Member Ward, did you want to kind of speak to your attendance for CML?
Sure. So it's been my annual tradition to attend the CML conference in June of every month as Englewood's representative to CML, voting member for the CML board. It's a 3.5-day event, 4-day event-ish. Basically consumes the entirety of the week. This year, the conference is in Westminster. So similar to what I did when the conference was at the Gaylord in Aurora, I am requesting hotel accommodations in Westminster so that I don't have to commute 90 minutes each way every day in rush hour traffic from Englewood to Westminster. It's just far more convenient to get to the venue in the morning and get out after and be rested so that I can be attentive during the sessions. So the total cost, I think came in around $1,600 or $1,700. And it's been a good experience. I think tonight's conversation was a little bit apropos because one of the big things at CML is obviously getting in with leaders in local government is important for a lot of people in the private sector. And so they do have a vendor showcase and vendor sponsorship at every CML. A lot of interesting products up for sale, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some products that might be relevant to what we discussed earlier this evening at CML. That is my request of council to take funds out of the travel budget for this year to allow me to attend the CML conference.
All right. Thank you very much, Member Ward. Anybody not in favor of Steve making his way to Westminster for 3 nights? All right. And actually, for members of our newer members, Member Somerset and Member Bethel, we do have a travel budget allocated for any type of, if you so choose to go to any events that thrown on by CML or any of our other partner organizations. The only ask is that we just bring it in front of council, and we do ask that you provide a report once you're back. So just to make you aware. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Member Ward. Any other reports from council members? Just got a few myself. So just a heads up or just a reminder that we are going to be meeting about the strategic plan on Thursday night, 6 p.m. here in this room, correct? Yeah. So there's that. If there's any specific metrics or outcomes or anything that you want us to discuss or want to make part of the strategic plan, I'm just asking that just bring that information and be ready to discuss for that evening. Also, Celebrate Englewood is this Saturday. Tim, are you going to be covering that as part of your city manager's report?
I am, yeah.
All right, perfect. I'll let you speak to most of it, but unfortunately, I won't be in town on Saturday, so I won't be at the event. Yeah, thank you very much to staff for putting that on again this year. I did, just because Seth brought it up earlier on tonight, tomorrow evening there is an affordable housing, are we going to call it a workshop? Not necessarily a town hall, but it's going to be at Lady Justice tomorrow from 5 to 7. I have Water and Sewer Board tomorrow that usually runs until about 6, but I will be stopping by immediately after. So if you're able to make it, it's Lady Justice. I believe the presentation starts around 5:30. And they'll be talking about what we're doing as a city for affordable housing. And lastly, I want to thank just everyone that was involved with the Dartmouth traffic circles conversation last Tuesday night during the snowstorm. So thank you very much to Public Works. Thank you very much to the Communications Department, but also want to thank Englewood Schools for allowing us to use Charles Hay for the venue. It was a great turnout, even with the snowstorm. But just very appreciative of people coming out and appreciative of staff and the community and the schools for allowing us to host the event. So that's all I have for Council Member's Choice. Anyone else? Go ahead, Member Russell.
I actually had a couple calls just in the last 2 days. Last Friday, someone called me at 7:30 in the morning because the loudspeaker on the school was playing very loud music. And they're very concerned that this would go on for the next few weeks. And so it was, I will tell you, the school was Cherlin, and this person lives right across the street. So having really loud music that early in the morning, so I don't know, can we reach out to the school system?
Oh yeah, we can.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
Tim, did you want to do that? You want to take that as an action, or?
Yeah, I can take that as an action item, Member Russell, if that's okay.
Okay,
I can
that's
follow
perfect.
up, yeah.
All right, thank you. And then I did have someone call me today. They were coming back. I believe they said down 285. So apparently there is a lot of homeless encampments even along 285. I think Cherry Hills was out cleaning up bushes and stuff in their area to clean it up. But I think maybe along Broadway, where the off-ramp is, they said somebody had a hammock out there and all of that. So if that's something we could look into, that would be great also.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, Member Russell. And we do have a contract with a company that actually can help us do removals of mattresses, hammocks, hazardous materials. So we can, it's run by the Code Compliance Division, so I can speak to them about that.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Member Russell. All right. Seeing no one else for Council Members' Choice, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. And I know you have a late evening, so I'll try to be quick. I do have a few staff members on call, though, for my one agendized item, but a couple quick things. In this room on Saturday, the Lions Club celebrated their 100th anniversary, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Englewood Lions Club celebrated their 100th anniversary. Some of their major accomplishments in the last 100 years were the donation of the train that became the Farm and Train, and then also the pool that used to be here that some folks who have been in Englewood in a while learned to swim in. We are working to get them in for a council recognition sometime in the summer. Also, as the mayor mentioned, the strategic plan item did get published tonight, so happy to answer any questions you may have on that. And then also, as the mayor mentioned, Celebrate Englewood, which is, I think, the 5th year of us doing this, is this coming Saturday. It's going to be from 10 to 2. My understanding is that 2 council members have volunteered to be there. So Krista Gravy is going to be reaching out to all of you tomorrow just to confirm that. I apologize, I don't know which 2, but she's going to be reaching out to all of you just to confirm your attendance and see if any of you are interested. So thank you. So thank you to the mayor for allowing me to bring an item forward this evening. So on Friday morning, I was pulled into a internal meeting about the possibility of a event that would be held here in the winter. And so this is an event that would be a partnership with a nonprofit called The Village. I do want to note that we did verify today, both through the IRS and the Secretary of State's office, that they are incorporated as a nonprofit and in good standing. But the event would basically be a holiday market that would be held, I believe, on 6 different days in the winter. One of those days would be in conjunction with the annual tree lighting. It would also be both an indoor and an outdoor event in this building. We think it could be a good opportunity because it would be, to our knowledge, the first time that there would be a public-private partnership like this between the city and between another entity. The organizers of the event who came forward were actually part of the Chris Crindle market in Denver for several years. They came to us last year wanting to do somewhat of a market in Englewood. 2 of them were present at the tree lighting, helping out with one of the booths. And then they also did do a small market that was by the, what I call the Duck Pond, but by the Little Dry Creek Plaza. And so after that event was held last year, Economic Development Manager Will Slate did an after-action report to kind of figure out what went wrong, what went right, what we could use to capitalize on that. And so the proposal that's before you this evening is one that I just want to thank Tim Holt, our open space manager, who's on the call, Tony Arnaldi, our event supervisor, is on the call, and Will Slate, our economic development manager, for pulling this proposal together. But the proposal before you is for a waiver of fees to be able to do this event. We think this would be beneficial for a few reasons. First is that, as you remember from the event strategy last July, we have different types of events. So this would fit into the event strategy as a signature event that would be able to generate somewhere between 500 and 10,000, probably not 10,000 yet, visitors to Englewood. It also would help us increase attendance at existing events. It would also, previously in the strategic plan, there were goals around trying to make it easier and streamline for individuals, private entities, and nonprofit organizations to do events in the city, and so that would be a part of it. It's before you tonight because only council can approve fee waivers, so that's why we brought it forward. There's really a few options, obviously, for council to take tonight. One is no action, one is you can provide consent to tonight, or the third one would be you'd like more information and you'd like it on a future agenda. I do want to point out too that Open Space Manager Holt has been in contact with the Englewood Downtown Development Authority, and they are interested in possibly being a partner, and so that's something we're going to explore in the future. So, Mayor, if it's okay, I'm just going to pause quickly and ask Event Supervisor Arnaldi to come on and see if there's anything I may forgot that she wanted to highlight.
Anything to add, Tony?
Thank you, Deputy City. Yes, thank you, Deputy City Manager and Mayor. I'm Tony Arnoldi, City of Englewood Event Supervisor. And I just wanted to add that I think that this is an amazing opportunity and just the first step in other really great partnerships that could take place in our city. This one is with a nonprofit. We can possibly explore more with EDDA and other nonprofits. And I just really look forward to it and think this is a great opportunity for our city. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you very much, Tony. Any questions from members of council? Go ahead, Member Summerson.
Just a quick question. There was the holiday market that was here in the building last year during the tree lighting. Would that displace that? Is that part of this? What are our obligations there?
Great question. Yeah, so it would actually be a part of this, and so the initial idea is that we would both be doing that inside and also some events and stalls outside. But I'll let Tony speak to that in more detail.
Great question. Thank you so much. So this year we would definitely be doing the inside and the outside market, and then we would explore that to see if moving forward that we want to make it more of an outdoor all day type of event, and then with the tree lighting at the end. So this year would be seeing how that is all going, getting the feedback from the participants and from the nonprofit and from staff to see what direction we would take moving forward.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from council? Go ahead, Member Russell.
I think that because of their asking for a fee waiver, that we should put this on a council meeting night, because I think a fee waiver, if council has to weigh in, we probably need to take a vote. rather than, we can't do that in a study session.
Thank you very much, Member Russell. Anyone disagree with that approach? Kind of makes sense now that I think about it. All right, we can add it to next Monday night. Actually, will we just put it under mayor's choice? Because it's just, it wouldn't be like an actual vote. The attorney knows.
I think you have some discretion as to how you'd like to treat it. But if you do want to take a formal vote, then we could put it on for a motion action item. Otherwise, we generally put mayor's choice items as we're going to do this unless someone objects.
That's right.
So if there may be some objection, I would just on for a motion.
Yeah, I think a motion probably makes sense. And yeah. All right. I think we could do that. Member Summerson, anything to add?
I just had something on
Sure.
Celebrate Englewood, but because I actually did see Krista earlier, so I just wanted to.
I'll give you 1 second. So yeah, regarding this item, then yeah, let's just make a motion for next Monday night, specifically for the fee waiver. Thank you very much, Tim. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Rick.
thank you again for that.
All right.
I saw Krista earlier, so I just said that I would share with all of you that if anyone else open to volunteering, Member Prang and I are the two that volunteered. She mentioned Pro Tem Anderson may open the event in the morning, TBD. But anyway, if anyone wants to join us, I think she was curious whether we would do anything if only the middle shift was covered. That there'd be a lot of setup and whatnot for just a short period of time if there wasn't coverage in the morning or in the afternoon. So I'm happy to extend either in the morning or into the afternoon if anyone else wants to join. So.
Sounds good. I think Krista sent out an email to all members of council. So if anybody's able to make it this Saturday, I unfortunately will be out of town. But if you're able to just reach out to Krista or to Rick and Tina, that would be appreciated. All right. Member Russell, go ahead.
I actually have a graduation on Saturday morning, so that's why I didn't sign up.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Anything else, Tim?
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. With that, everyone, we are now adjourned. I will see you all Thursday night. Have a good evening.